okay? Because the experiment didn't work.
The
Okay,
experiment's different than a
this is what the actual.
hypothesis.
Hang
Oh
on,
well, you
you
already
can't be
lose,
talking
Jen,
when
if
I'm
you
talking,
accept the
Zanick.
fact that it's an experiment in the
It
first
is.
place.
Yeah,
Who
An
well, I
cares if
didn't.
the
experiment
experiment
Well, I
works or
is
didn't.
not?
just
I
a
didn't. I'm just
hypothesis
quoting.
test.
I'm quoting the
Yes,
narrator
correct.
of the video. I'm quoting the narrator of the video, stating that no one could get the experiment working. Frustration always seemed to be the
Then it
key.
wouldn't support
But
the
anyway,
hypothesis.
can we
So what?
move on now? We're going to move on now,
Yes,
Zanick.
move on.
Where
Thank
I
you for
was, we're
thank you
talking
for the time,
about.
guys. Let me
I'm
come
going to
back
move
and
on.
talk and
Bye bye.
chat a little
Good
bit more.
luck. Thank you very much. Sayonara. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Thank you. Right
I'm
now,
not going anywhere, but I'm just not going
basically
to say
this.
anything.
All right, Jen gotta
Basically,
be
it's
like
this. We were
that,
talking
man.
about the Faraday cage.
Hold on, Jen, Motormouth. Zanick,
Faraday cage.
you are
My
welcome
God,
here,
Jen.
so don't feel like you're not welcome here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
you're
appreciate
welcome
that.
there all the time. It's just the way you were going on, right? You just go on. That's all. Now,
No,
all
I
I'm
just,
trying to say is
my
this:
little thing is,
there's an
my thing is
anomaly. There's an
hypothesis. I
anomaly.
understand.
There's an
God, Jen,
anomaly. Look,
forget
you're
about it.
going on again. I
Dude,
Motor
can't
mouth.
get to
oh
speak.
come on, guys, God.
Right, we're
We just
moving
wanted to
on
move
from the
on in the
fucking.
conversation. Nothing personal,
Yes,
Sanic.
No,
yeah.
it's
See
just
you later,
Jen
Zanick.
keeps on calling him motor mouth. That's
Yeah,
funny.
dude, Jen, you
I know
gotta
he's a
sum it
fucking
up,
idiot.
man.
Let me move on now. Are you ready? Here we go. There's an anomaly in the Apollo mission story about the film. And there's an Australian who was experiencing fogging of his film, yeah? And he called the Kodak technicians in. And they stated to him that the problem with the film and where you got it stored away is that it's receiving cosmic ray particles hitting the film. Cosmic radiation is what he called it. Okay. And he needed to build a Faraday cage to protect the film. This is in Australia. Source: What Happened on the Moon, Part 1, What Happened on the Moon, Part 2 and 3 combined, okay? That's where the source is, okay? And the Faraday cage worked. Now, they didn't have a Faraday cage on the Apollo missions, by the way. So how did the film survive the journey? All the way there and all the way back. That's the question. And remember, the guy's on Earth. The guy's on Earth here experiencing fogging of his film on Earth, and it's 238,000 miles supposedly to the moon. So how did the film survive this cosmic radiation? Not to mention the cosmic ray particles and the 3 Allen radiation belts. How did the film survive that without a Faraday cage to protect it? Okay, please explain. Anyone?
What? So, okay. So film didn't survive, or film survived the alleged moon missions. Well, we know the moon missions were BS, so I don't really see the point in digging into the minutia of things that could or couldn't work on the moon mission when all you have to do is open a can of soda and show gas escape. I mean, come on. Why are we digging into the
Oh, well, I thought you might have found it interesting because you were talking about Faraday cage earlier on. That's all.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess that's fair.
Yeah,
If it's
that was
about
the only reason
Faraday
why.
cages and whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I kind of want to get back to the natural observation part, you know? Like I think we need to like dig more into that in terms of like what are the rules of a naturally observed phenomenon? What can and cannot be counted as a natural phenomenon?
Well, it
And
must be. It must be.
That's a good.
Obviously, it must be happening naturally without man's intervention. So it must be happening naturally in nature, and you observe that phenomena, and then you put up your hypothesis as to why it's happening first and foremost. Yeah.
okay, so
Well,
when let's focus on the observe part. What are
Mm-hmm.
the
Go on.
limits of my observation? I can touch something, I can smell it, I can hear it, I can see it, I can taste it.
It now.
So I just wanted to follow up on. So I just wanted to follow up on what Jen said. The thing is you're going to have to manipulate it. So let's say, like, this is my uh, question that I had. So let's say you have like comets going by, or like these streaks, these what they call it, like falling stars. So something I can observe, I can see it. Let's say I rig up a laser where I can shoot it up in the sky and then create this phenomena I'm looking at. So I am or like I can stop. Let's say there's a really, like the moon. Let's say I'm shooting a laser at the moon, and then it nullifies some of the moon, so then it kind of looks like it's a crescent moon. I manipulated that phenomena I'm looking at, just pulling out crazy stuff. So it's not a matter of where you're looking at it. It's just that the phenomenon you're going to observe, you need to be able to cause that phenomenon in order to follow up in a hypothesis and concluding what is the hypothesis, or the, I guess, what would the theory would be at the end, because you would have to actually manipulate the cause to cause the effect for it to be a valid science experiment.
Of course, yeah. That would be kind of just the next step, right? After after you have your phenomenon that you've observed, then you have to then, manipulate what causes that phenomenon to occur. But I guess I'm just hung up on the first part. It's like getting past the fact that if you can't see it, if you're using something beyond more than your normal senses to observe something, then what is the limit of that? Like what?
I don't think it is a limit. There, it's because how you're observing the phenomena, it doesn't change the fact that it's an observable phenomenon. I think the question has always been,
Mhm.
what is the observable phenomenon? Because my question was, if your eyes, you're trying to test how your eyes work, or you're trying to manipulate vision, that's something on somebody's eyeballs. So is that an observed phenomenon that you can test with a scientific hypothesis? So you can let's say you can alter someone's vision by
Hmm.
different ways. You're causing an effect to happen on someone's vision. Is this all, or is this the fact that it's your eyeballs that you can't call this a natural phenomenon?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you can call your vision a natural phenomenon. I mean, unless you can vary and are you like how are you going to manipulate someone else's vision?
Like you can change the lens, the size of your lenses, or let's say you change the retinas in the back of your eyeball so they can see, let's say, some other frequencies.
Huh.
You know what I mean? You see, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
this is the question I'm talking. Not if you put something in front of people's eyes and then like glasses or something, but I'm changing, like physically changing your eyes. If Would
Hmm.
this be, with all that endeavor? Let's say you're trying to make a blind person see. Would you need science in order for that to happen, or is that all in technological engineering?
That's a fascinating way to put it.
Yeah, you're going to need the science of optics, aren't you, for that to understand it, and that's going to come into medicine as well as science. That's human anatomy, okay? But if you're talking about planets, there is no way using my telescope I can deduce anything but any object that I see in the sky. I can make little theories and hypotheses, but I can't prove them, can I? Because I can't go there to confirm what I'm saying is happening is actually, I can't do that, can I? So
Well,
that's why it's not science. That's
well,
not
that
science,
was
is it?
well, that was my question, because you can, let's say you can see there's Mars up there, and let's say you have this powerful enough laser, you can shoot a huge laser on it, and then you can change how Mars looks.
Wait a minute, wait a
You,
minute. Instead of using the telescope example, bring it back to the microscope and say, well, because I can point a telescope at the sky, I can't prove anything about what I'm looking at because I can't change anything. But if you look through a telescope, or not telescope, a microscope, and you're zooming in on some little microorganism, you can affect that, right? You could spray some freaking poison or something in there or whatever, and cause the little creature that you're looking at to
yeah,
do something different.
unfortunately, that's something you can manipulate. You can manipulate that here because it's within your grasp and you're trying to cure this or get rid of this virus with your vaccine or whatever. You can do that, but you can't do anything to manipulate the planets up there.
No,
Nothing can you do.
no.
Well,
Nothing physically. You
well,
can't.
they say
You
HARP.
have
They
to
say
look. You would need. No, hang on again. I'm going to say it one more time. Don't keep interrupting. You will need to physically go there. If you haven't been there, you don't know what it is. Period. Thank you. Fuck.
okay.
Well,
So I was
Amir
gonna
is
use.
right though.
So
No,
hold
like
on. I
go.
just follow up on his thing, because my example is, let's say people think that there's conspiracy theory that HARP is causing the aurora borealis. Over there. There's they have like a set of antennas, or I don't know what they are, but I've seen pictures of these antennas going up, that they're shooting something up, and it's going to cause the aurora borealis. I don't know how it works because I don't know everything, the ins and outs of this conspiracy theory, but that's something that's being manipulated, and they're causing an effect that we can see. You know, so
Yeah, it's similar to your laser. Like you said, they shine a laser on the moon and illuminate the moon and basically manipulate the phase of the moon, I guess, right? It's kind of the same idea where you are manipulating it at that point.
Yeah, just imagine.
But actually, you can't. But you can't shine a laser on the moon. Excuse me.
No,
Have you been onto the
theoretically.
moon?
No. I know we can't, but he's saying like hypothetically,
Okay.
if I had a laser.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because the question I
Sorry.
had, I asked this question the weekend about the new moon. You know, they say that where you can't see the moon in the sky, wherever you shine, you know, you project where it's going to be, and then it's completely it's invisible. Let's say you shine a laser through it, and then you can kind of start seeing it. I mean, you're manipulating the absurd phenomenon to do that. You know, it's all. This is just completely like science fiction I'm talking about. But wouldn't that be still an actual scientific experiment? Let's say you can, because apparently they're saying you can shine a laser to it and it'll bounce it back. So I was like, did they try that during a new moon? Or it doesn't, again, it doesn't matter when is it always going to come back to you because it's bouncing off something, right?
Yeah, dude, that would be a good experiment, a real experiment. You could say like if
Well, they reckon.
light
They're doing that
causes
already.
the
Hang on, gentlemen. They reckon they're
Jen, why
doing
you
that
gotta do
already
this?
with the reflectors that are supposedly on the moon. What I'm saying to you is that cannot be accepted unless you go to the moon yourself, see and touch that reflector,
Why?
and then watch that laser beam come in and hit. That's
Why
the
is
only
that?
way you're going to confirm that.
That's not
Outside of
how
that,
it works.
that's theory. That's fantasy.
That's not
That's
how it
the
works, though.
standard that is
theory.
look. That is the standard that is required. That's the only standard I'm going to accept.
It's actually not.
Nothing else.
Well, for you, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. That's my standard. Sorry.
Well, the
Anything
standard
else
for
is
this
fantasy.
experiment is just to manipulate an independent variable. But when you get that experiment, you might say, you know, it's weak. You didn't go there. You don't know. But the experiment could be sound because
You
you've
would know
changed.
I was there. You
Oh,
would know I
shit.
was
You,
there.
you know,
You would know I
you know
was
what? I
there.
don't think
Come
you
on,
ever
bro,
listened to what we're
Jen,
doing
don't.
talk.
He wasn't on for talking. Go ahead, Zanick. I know you.
Thank you. So as long as you're, you know, changing, manipulating that independent variable, meaning it could be time, it could be where you're shooting it, how you're shooting, what like things. Trying to shoot it on a new moon if you want to try that. These are all changing the independent variable somewhat. So when you get your results, all that will be support for the hypothesis. Either it'll be strong or weak. And if you're Jin and you say, "Well, I see your evidence; it's not strong because you didn't go there. I don't like this. I don't like that. Use the wrong color laser, whatever." That's fine, but it is evidence and it is a scientific experiment.
All right. So just to jump on that, you use the word change so the problem is that when we're talking about natural science, you're trying to cause the effect, not trying to manipulate a change. Because that's why you said distance, time. These things are not viable hypotheses or not viable
Independent.
causes of things.
Well, no, that's the change of the independent variable will help you determine what is the cause in the hypothesis, but the cause of the change is something different. There's a cause of the cause, and there's the cause, right? We're
No,
talking
this
about
is
making a change. Hold on. All your experience will have a change, and in that change, whatever you're changing, it could be time, it could be something simple like that.
no.
That
That's what we're
will,
that's what we're saying. It
hold
doesn't
on.
happen.
That will have an effect on the outcome of the experiment. That experiment provides support for the hypothesis. I'm giving you from a science perspective, for someone that's actually worked in the field. I mean, this is how it works. I mean, this is not up for debate, by the way.
It
It's up
is.
for understanding debate, but it's not for debate because this is the reality. I
It
can
Wait a
is.
do
minute,
a plan.
Zanick.
No, it
Zanick,
is.
dude.
I can do a
It is.
plan.
It's a
I can
difference
say
between.
my independent variable is time. I'm gonna see how much it grows in a week, and
No,
that
that's the
for all these
difference between
different teams.
pseudoscience. That's just pseudoscience. That's a problem.
It's
You
not
do believe
pseudoscience. That's science.
you believe in pseudoscience. That's if you just accept
Thank
the
you.
fact
That's
that
what
you
it is.
believe in
Pseudoscience at
pseudoscience,
its
Why
best.
do you say
then
that?
go ahead. Just go. No, you do
Why do you
because
say that?
okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, how about we
It doesn't
believe in
matter. You accuse me
yeah,
of something.
no because I'm telling you the word. It's
Oh,
pseudoscience because you're not manipulating the cause. In your own words, you're saying you only are trying to document a change.
Yeah.
You're only
there's no
documenting a change
cause.
that you are now correlating to some type of effect. This
Right.
is why we
All
say
we're
it's
trying.
pseudoscience.
Over
Okay, I'll
distance.
tell you why
Over
you're wrong.
distance, you
Let
said.
me, Jen.
No,
Can you give me a
hold on.
second, Jen, please?
I'm not finished. I'm gonna finish. The reason I'm saying there is okay, let's call it, we believe in schminds. Okay, the schminds of natural phenomenon has to manipulate the cause. No if or ands or buts. Fine, you can have the word that you believe in science that doesn't manipulate the cause. Okay, you're just invoking a change that you're documenting. That's the science you believe in.
No, no.
Okay, it's different.
Well,
You
let
have
me,
to
let me
accept the
explain.
difference.
The cause and effect relationship in an experiment is much different than the cause and effect that is talked about in the story of the hypothesis. Like we talked about the Cavendish. Hey, the story is, hey, we think gravitation exists everywhere, and not only between two masses, but the Earth and the mass. That's the hypothesis. You prove that by doing all these series of tests. Every one of these tests, you're manipulating the independent variable in that test. It could be anything. It could be time. It could be this position. It could be the red
It's
laser. It
not.
could be this, that, and the other. Time is most important.
No, you can't
All
manipulate time.
Yes, you can
No,
change
you
the time.
no, you
Okay,
can't change time.
let me just
You understand? No, no,
I let
you
you
can't
finish the
time
sentence.
travel.
Let me
No,
finish.
because
It's
you
not
just said
bad.
no.
Wait a
I just
minute,
rebutted this.
Zanick, dude,
Let me
hold
please let me
on.
just
Before
finish
we,
the
whoa,
sentence.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
You
whoa,
might get
Object
whoa.
to.
Hold on. Before we
Okay.
steam forward, Zanick, I just want to ask you if you would please, when you make a full statement and end it with a period, don't just immediately launch into a new statement. At least allow what you said to be responded to, because you keep on dropping 3 or 4 statements back to back to back to back, and then and during your statements you make multiple things that throw red flags up for me, but I don't have time to answer. No one really has time to respond because you just blast forward into the next statement. So let's try to take this one step at a time. Can we do that?
Well,
I
here's a
I thought I
problem
was
though.
doing that. So
No,
let me
we're not.
reiterate
We're
real
not.
quickly.
Once we have an objection, this is not like something you can go Earth Awakenings where you can just waffle on entirely on your. The thing is, when you say something is objectionable, we're not going to let you continue.
Okay,
This is why the server is different. You said you can manipulate time. We're telling you that you can't. You cannot go back in time. You cannot slow time. You cannot speed up time. This is all just gibberish saying that you can cause an effect with time. Time
so
is a concept. You
I get
cannot
it.
manipulate a
I even want to
concept
learn about it. I get that.
because you don't accept it. Are you
I
going to
do,
say
but
you can
you're
manipulate time?
incorrect in your whole idea about this cause and effect and the independent variable of something like time. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to manipulate the time. You can actually meter the time out. You can say, I want to allow this much time for chemistry, for example. If I took chemistry, you probably didn't,
Okay,
you might have it as well. If you have
that is a
chemistry, I'm
control.
talking
Control.
quickly
That's
because I want
right.
to get the one
That's the
sentence out,
control.
and I can't. You think I'm going on and on. I'm not. I counted 10 words, and you guys, boom, jumped in. Let me just finish the sentence. If I have a chemistry experiment and I want to see what the effect of allowing a minute to go by for the process or 10 minutes, I'm not manipulating time. I'm not slowing time down. I'm allowing how much time to elapse to see what the effect of that is on this particular experiment. That is
And that's
critical for,
yes.
hold on, let
It's
me,
that's
you
called a
can't
control.
help.
No, I'm already objecting to it because you're
Not a
trying
control
to.
variable.
It is a
Not a
control
control.
variable.
It
If
is
you're
not.
measuring, you're not manipulating it. You're just controlling the variable.
Okay, no, that's not how
That's
it
a
works.
controlled variable.
No,
That's
you're
absolutely what
wrong
that
again.
is.
Here, let me explain. Let me explain why you're wrong. Because I'm going to do this. When
You're not
if I
manipulating the
object, I'm going to explain
course of
myself.
time.
If I object, I'm going to explain. So a control variable is when you do this test, well, let's say we want to allow 5 minutes or a week or a month. I'm going to make sure all other variables do not change. Those other variables that I'm making sure that do not change are called the control variable. You're wrong that the independent variable in this particular situation for chemistry, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a day, a month, that is the independent variable. The control variables are the
It's a
ones that are
control.
not changing. So you're wrong.
Yeah, it's a control because you can control things that happen within five
I just
minutes.
explained to
So
you, and you said I'm wrong.
yes,
No,
you're not
please
manipulating it.
document.
You're
Show me
literally
some. Show
not
me some.
manipulating the time. You
I
understand?
am.
You're only
I'm
controlling for
changing
time.
this manipulation thing.
You don't change it.
The tweaking thing you're talking about. You've been going on this. The whole server here has been going on it for 4 or 5 years. No, the change can just be allowed. I'm going to give you a quote. I'm going to give you
No,
like
no,
a
no, no.
citation. I know
This
QE
is
likes
your fake
citations.
this
I'm
is
going to
your
give you a
fake
citation
pseudoscience.
from University of California, Berkeley, that talks specifically about independent variables being one of them being the most powerful one being time. You want me to put that in the chat? I can't. I'll give it to you personally. I'll send it to your name, and you can post it because that is the universities say it. So you're telling me it's not. All these other people on your servers tell me it's not. Yet the universities and everybody else in science say that it is. Who's
Yeah,
right? You think?
Let's see.
because
You
the
Let's
think right? You're
universities
right or
believe
they're
in
right?
this. No, that's called pseudoscience.
It's not
You believe in the
pseudoscience.
pseudoscience. No, you can go ahead and you can
All right, you know
believe
what?
it.
You and I
You
play a little
understand
game
the
here.
difference. No, you
No, I
understand
do.
the
I
difference,
do.
do
I
you?
know what pseudoscience means.
Okay, no, you understand the difference of what we're telling you, but you're pretending like we have to now believe you. No, you personally
Not a belief.
understand. Hold on. You personally understand the difference we're telling you about causing and manipulating a cause. You want to cause something that we do not condone a cause, which is time. You understand the stance we have. So I'll give you an example. If you're trying to see very how much when let's say you're putting a solution into some culture to see how long it'll take for this for the culture to like die or something. Okay, let's say you and then you test things for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever. If that you're not manipulating, you have to put the solution you put into it is the cause. The time is being varied, but you need to control for it. So let's say how much solution you want in this culture, you can vary that solution, and you can do it within 10 minutes. So each let's say each culture is going to have a 10-minute time period. You're now controlling for this time. It's a controlled, okay, it's a control variable. You think it's a independent uh, variable. It is not. It is a control variable. Now you can agree to disagree, but you understand the position.
No, I'm not because you're absolutely positively wrong. For example, if I wanted to see how long you could survive by holding your breath, let's say I want to choke and before you tap out. When you're going to tap out is the hypothesis. I think your lung you have only one lung. Oh no, I got two lungs. I think you got one, and I'll prove it by you'll tapping out in 30 seconds where most people tap out in a minute, and I start choking you.
Okay, so is the
Yeah,
choking the actual
yeah,
cause of
yeah, yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
No,
so now
this
that
is
just
where
disproved your point.
come here. This is
So
where
you
you're
just
confused.
disproved. Hold on. You just
yeah.
disproved your own point because it's
No,
the
no,
choking
that's
that causes you to pass out.
what's
No,
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 that,
no,
what,
Amir.
what,
It's the time. It's the
it's
time that causes you to
what's
pass out, not
yeah,
the
Yeah,
what's
right.
choking.
Oh, yeah, it's the time. So if I'm here
no, that's
sitting,
not the
uh,
point. The
no,
hypothesis is
you
I
just
think you have
disproved
one lung.
yourself.
I
You
think
just
you have
disproved
one
yourself.
lung.
Yeah,
Hold
dude,
No,
you
on.
no, no.
just
Let's go
totally
back to the
debunked your
choking.
whole thing,
You're just
bro.
not. Are you trolling? You're just okay. No, let's go back to the choking. Do you think if I choke you out for 10, and it takes me 10 minutes to choke you out, or then another time it takes me 15 minutes to choke you out, it was the time slowed down, or was it you choking me that happened?
No, that's not what the hypothesis is. See, we're providing support and evidence for the hypothesis, proof for the hypothesis. That's
Tell
what
me
we're
you
trying to
understand
support.
this. What is
Okay,
causing you to pass out?
let me
No,
finish
no, no.
one
Tell
more.
me. No, no,
Let me
no.
explain one
You
more
tell
thing.
me you understand what I'm talking about.
I
What
know
is
what you're talking
causing
about,
you
but
to
you're
pass
wrong.
out?
It's
Is
not a
it the
matter of
choking?
time being the cause. That's not what
Right.
an
It's not.
experiment does.
So is it
That's
you
not what it does.
choking
You
me?
think it does,
Is
but
it
it's
the
not what it does.
choking?
We're providing evidence for the hypothesis.
Dude, the
We're providing evidence for the
independent
hypothesis.
variable
So
must
in the test,
cause
I
the
make five
effect.
tests.
You're
I make
trying to
five.
take away,
Oh
dude. You're
my
trying to
God.
make the independent
This is a,
variable not be a cause.
come on. Let
It's
me. I
not
just
a
want to hear him
cause. That's
say
not
it.
what the
It
point of my
is a cause. That is
experiment is.
what independent
No,
variable.
Okay.
no,
No.
no,
Here.
no. Okay, let
No.
me
Hold
just
on.
finish the
No.
next sentence. You might get
No.
it.
No. No. I want you to get a concession. Is it that you choking me that's causing me to pass out, or is it the time?
Well, it's actually both, but
Oh,
it's
it's
more
both.
about it's really about how much oxygen your body's able to absorb from its inside your lung until it runs out of oxygen. That's what the cause is.
Yeah. So the cause is oxygen.
Right, right. But that's not what we're trying to find out here in this experiment. One of these experiments are going to support my hypothesis, being that you only have one lung. The fact that you only have one lung is the cause. Verse two is the cause of why you can't hold your breath for more than 5 minutes. We're going to say
Are you-
that's the hypothesis. So one of the tests I do is I choke you out and you tap out in 30 seconds. Well, okay, and then that time that in 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, I can do that test over and over again. But at 30, you pass out. Well, that's my experiment. Now I do
so
another experiment. Hold on,
so if I
hold on.
wasn't choking,
Now I do
if
another
I no hold on,
experiment. I put you in.
no before you go on to
I
another
mean,
experiment.
I can't even finish the thought, so it's not
No,
even
because
bother.
now you're going on to another experiment. You already
No,
finished the
no,
thought.
I'm saying all these
No,
experiments will support. Oh, you bounced me.
it, I didn't. No,
Okay. All these
Yeah,
experiments will
ho-
support the hypothesis. You can do multiple. They can be all really diverse, but all of them support the hypothesis. Each one of them does not determine, or even doesn't have to even talk about the actual cause of
so
the effect. And whole, let me just finish the sentence. Each one of those experiments doesn't have to address the actual cause. They can be their own cause and effect relationship. Like, what did you do? What did you manipulate the independent variable, and how did it affect the outcome? Great. Put that aside and use that later when we have the 5 or 6 experiments, and then when we go to the judge and say, "Here's our experiments. These 5 experiments. One of them had time as an independent variable, by the way, and then here's our results. This is why we think X was the reason, the cause of this effect in our supporting our hypothesis." That's how science works.
no, no, no. See, what you just said is that it is you put aside the cause. This is a quote from you. You just said you put aside the
The
cause,
actual cause, yes.
the actual cause, right? So this is now you're now doing something called pseudoscience because you're now not having a cause and effect relationship. You think that if I sit here in 10 minutes, I'm going to pass out because time just elapsed 10, 15 minutes. I'm just going to now choke to death for some reason. It's not the fact that you're choking somebody that's causing somebody to die. So you can say
Right,
it's like the real cause is the lack of oxygen. So you can
right.
say that that is the oxygen is the actual
But the true idea in the
cause.
experiment, I know, but the true idea in the experiment is to find something that makes a change in the outcome. What causes a change in the outcome? That is the cause and effect relationship. That's why I don't like the cause and effect names, because it's conflicting with the cause and effect relationship in the hypothesis. Is what you're really talking about. Every time we talk
No,
about this, you guys are always talking about the cause and effect, like what is really happening. But the
no, we had this
experiments aren't
conversation.
like that. The experiments are much more micro. They're much more like, I can take, let's say I'm talking about something completely different, like in the body, but I took this one drug and I want to see what it does in this other environment. Now, in time can be a variable, or heat or temperature or whatever. And those experiments have nothing to do with the real idea. Like I'm in court of law and trying to prove this cause and effect relationship of the hypothesis. This experiment has nothing to do with that cause directly. It's supporting this cause and effect relationship called the hypothesis, but it's not touching, it's not tweaking the retroreflective mirrors. I'm not talking about the rocket or any of these other things. I'm talking about little things. I do a test, experiment, I change one little factor that changes the outcome of that experiment. That's called the independent variable. Everything else is the controller variable. The change I make is the independent variable, and see how it changes. If it changes the outcome, then it is a valid experiment, and that is a valid independent variable. That actually made a change.
So that again, we're going back to what you just don't want to agree with this. That this you don't have to agree, but this is it. What you just described, it's a called pseudoscience because you can't determine the difference between an actual cause and a correlative, something that just correlates. That's what you're saying. That maybe
Kind of
that
getting it,
ten
but
that
not
the
really.
time. No, no, no. You understand the difference. I understand. You already said it because I'm quoting you when you said you put aside the cause. So when we're talking about natural science, we're not going to put the cause aside.
Actually,
And
uh,
this is your words in verbatim.
yes,
You put aside the cause.
right.
You
For the
want to say
cause of
something
this,
that,
cause the
yeah,
effect in the hypothesis. Whatever that cause, like gravity, for example. We say gravity's the cause. Well, we put that aside for this other test, or if in plant growth, we put aside all the other things that really cause plants to grow. All we're talking about is the time for this one experiment. It's not saying that
it's,
time's the cause
it
of the plant growing.
is
It's saying
not.
that in this experiment, to support our hypothesis of why plants grow, time is one of the factors.
No, it's a
No,
control
man.
variable. We just told you this again, but this
Not a
is
control,
funny.
but
No, no, what you just described is called a clinical study.
no.
That's all that you believe clinical studies are science.
That's not true. Okay, so if I'm going to send you
It's
something on
not
a
natural science.
personal
No,
message,
no,
and you're going to post it for me, okay? Because they don't let me post anymore. I don't know what the problem is. Like I'm so offensive or something.
Dude,
That's
I
real
never knew
science.
that, but
It's actually real science, and I'm going to give it to you real quick, and you can read it aloud, and it'll talk about why time is an independent variable, and then all the things I'm talking about, that it'll come to light of why this is true.
none. So you keep changing what we're talking about. We're talking about what is a natural scientific hypothesis. You want to talk about an independent variable. an independent variable needs to cause what the dependent variable to
Yes.
happen. It needs to
Yes.
cause.
Now you're right.
No. You think that correlation will be good enough for an independent variable.
No, I
When
didn't
you're
say that.
doing it's
I never
yes,
said that.
because
You're
yes,
putting the
because you
words in my
think
mouth.
that time. No, I'm telling you because this is the difference between what we're telling you and what you're telling us. You think that time can be an independent variable.
It
But
can.
we
You don't
told you
think
that
it
it
can?
doesn't. No, time doesn't cause the
It
effect to
causes a
happen.
change. It causes a change in the outcome of that experiment. That's the definition of an independent variable. Go look it up.
No,
No,
it doesn't cause
Yes, it
the
does.
actual. It doesn't
Okay, when
actually
I put it,
cause it.
can't find
The independent variable is not the cause. Okay, a thing's rotting, right? Let's say you're watching something rot, and you're going to manipulate. Oh, I got to go in 15 minutes. You're going to manipulate the independent variable of time. Okay, did time cause something that you're watching to rot? Let's say it's an apple. Was it the time that caused the apple to rot?
That's no, it does. It wasn't. That's why it's an independent variable for that experiment, whatever your experiment was.
No. You just said no, and then you said yes. So
Well, no,
if I
because
have two apples, and I'm going to observe how long it takes them to rot, is this a valid experiment?
it can be, yeah, definitely.
no,
How long it takes them for the rot time for
It
sure.
isn't.
nope.
Let me give you the uh, science definition from University of Berkeley. Here it is.
No,
What
see, I
makes
understand.
time? Hold on. What
Oh,
makes
no, the
time?
thing,
Can I? It's a
you
three
did. You're
sentence.
repeating yourself
No,
already.
no. What
Golly.
makes here's from the University of California. What makes time an independent variable? Dependent variables. Well, let me get back to why the actual definition for you. Could time ever be that's a dependent variable? That's a bending time. Be something different. I don't want to read the whole thing because it's long. I'm trying to find independent variables, sometimes called the predictor, controlled, manipulated, explanatory variables. Let's think of time as a variable that fits some of those words. Time can be predictive. Time is an independent variable. It's not the growth of the whiskers that made time go by. It's the opposite. When the passage of time was directly correlated and associated with the growth of the whiskers, time was
Correlated?
the independent variable when
Correlate.
considering time and the whisker growth.
You
It
just
is
said
an
it.
independent variable,
You just said it. It's correlated.
right?
Okay, so
And
it's not the cause. Come on,
time
dude.
was the
Come
independent
on, dude.
variable when
You
considering.
understand that this is the end of the
I know
conversation.
what I'm talking about
No,
here.
no,
You're
this is the end of the conversation right here. Don't worry.
you're talking past each other.
No. You just said it. Correlated. It's in your quote that you're trying to quote to us.
It can be time can be controlled. This is from University
Come
of
on.
Berkeley, by the way.
Can you
Time
just
can be
Can
admit
you?
what
controlled
we
Hey,
and
said?
hold on.
You just said correlated.
Time can be controlled and manipulated. Of course, you cannot time travel, or alter the flow of time, but you can pick discrete times to control them or manipulate time. Say you want to study the temperature at Lahaina noon
You
over a
repeat that word
10-year
that you
period.
said.
The
Repeat the word that you
independent
said.
variable is
Correlated.
time. Hold on.
wait a
You
minute.
The
just repeat
independent
the word
Wait,
that
variable.
you
wait,
just
wait.
said.
Hey, you're not gonna let
Time
me
out.
talk.
Time
Okay,
out.
that's fine.
Zanick, can you send me whatever it is you're reading?
Yes. With the
I don't understand what this is like the end of the conversation. You you just admitted what we're saying. So there was no further argument here. You just said correlative. That's exactly what we said that it is.
yes, and that isn't it as a valid independent
It is
variable.
not a cause.
It's that's not
It's
where
it.
this is where we get the problem. It's not the cause of this of your hypothesis. In the hypothesis, it's a cause in your experiment because it caused a change. It did cause a change. It's not your the word cause. That's why you could change the word cause for these discussions because you guys, I know what you're saying, but you're not getting the fact
You
that
just
time
wanted us to
in the
believe in
experiment.
the
Okay,
pseudoscience. It's not
who
going
do I
to
send
be
this
a
to?
valid
Who do
experiment.
I send this to?
You can send it to Bushel. He's
Bush,
going to
I'll
read
send
it
this to
off.
everybody.
Yeah.
All right, because you guys got to read this because it's really important.
I'm a little worried that it's California though. I mean, I noticed that there's a big
It, it, it,
divide. There's a
it,
big divide among the higher education where a lot of the colleges will, say the opposite of what other colleges will say. So it's kind of hard to just pick one and run with it.
well, here's the thing. It's like because I've read up on Karl Popper, and he he's already into the pseudoscience, and that people believe now, the things they teach now in school. because he was trying to discern between two different types of scientific method, and they're both we here we would consider pseudoscience. He wanted the difference between what Einstein was doing and what the difference between um, what was that psychologist name, Sigmund Freud. He one of his books, he was talking about the difference between these types of science methods, and of course we wouldn't accept any of those two. So the fact that this is what they teach now in school, and we're rebutting this, saying that this is not a valid inquiry of knowledge. It doesn't matter if you quote us to us, because that is the people. That is exactly the people we have problems with.
There you go.
Yeah, something I just posted a minute ago about independent variables. I'll just read it because it was pretty good. It says, I think I got it from, where did I find that? That was scienceready.com, and it says, independent variables are the variables that are manipulated or changed by the researcher in an experiment. They are also known as the input variables or the cause variables because they are the factors that cause changes in the dependent variable. For example, if you were investigating the effect of temperature on the rate of photosynthesis in plants, temperature would be the independent variable. You would manipulate the temperature to see how it affects the rate of photosynthesis. It is essential to note that an experiment should have only one independent variable. This is because if you change more than one variable, you will not know which variable caused the change in the dependent variable.
Perfect.
Therefore, by controlling the independent variable, you can determine the effect of that variable on the dependent variable.
There you
So
go.
this sums it up pretty good. It says that the independent variable
Thank you.
must cause change in
The
the
change.
dependent variable.
Yeah, it changed the dependent variable. It doesn't say anything about the hypothesis. It talks
Right, but
about
time
the
does not
dependent.
cause things.
Yes, it causes a change in the actual experiment. Read what I wrote to a Bushnell.
Yeah, he originally said it, but now he doesn't want to say it. It says that it correlates.
I'm gonna
Uh,
find
It
that.
so
correlates.
if you
It
try to,
correlates. It's controlled. I mean, all that. Yes, I put it in your in Bushnell's
Here,
inbox.
I'm gonna read the part about the correlate. It says, time can be predictive. The passage of time can predict that I will need to shave again. What the hell? This time is the independent variable. It's not this. Whoever wrote this is illiterate because this is really dumb. It's not my growth of whiskers. It's not my growth of whiskers that made time go by. It was the opposite. It was the passage of time that was directly correlated or associated with the growth of my whiskers. Time
ding,
was the
ding, ding,
independent
ding,
variable when considering the variables of time and whisker growth. Yeah, ding, ding, ding is right. Correlated or associated.
correlated or associated.
No, wait, let's bounce that back to the first thing I just read about the photosynthesis, right? So the example was you're investigating the effect of temperature on the rate of photosynthesis in plants. The temperature would be the independent variable. Now, if you were to come along and try to add time into that and say, well, the time that the plant spends in that temperature is my independent variable, not the heat. I'm not, the temperature is no longer my independent variable, but I'm going to set the temperature to a set amount and then change the time, how long the plant lasts in there, right? That wouldn't work. That you're
So
because the time is still not causing anything. The cause of what you're studying is the temperature, the heat.
Why don't you read the part that I just sent you that talks about what makes time an independent variable? I'll read this real quick. Dependent variables, like the word dependent indicates, on the independent variable in the study. The value, the size, the weight, the nature of an independent variable being studied depends on the independent variables. The dependent variable shows the outcome of the test experiment. A couple of examples. Here's a quick one. If you want to study the effect of time, an independent variable, on how long it takes broccoli seed to sprout in sunlight with water versus shade with no water, what is your dependent variable?
You
Well, you
just
say it's
said
the length of
it.
time.
Oh, you
Yeah,
the
you say it's the
effect
length.
of time.
Yes.
That's the effect,
Yeah, the
right?
effect of time. How does
It,
time affect the outcome? Exactly. It's the independent variable. If you want to
no,
study the effect of time, an independent variable on how long it takes broccoli to seed, sprout in sunlight with water versus shade with no water, here's your dependent variable. You say it's length of time, you're wrong. It's the dependent variable is the sprouting of the seed. Such as a study would you'd have several independent variables, and that may, and I'm sure it would, affect even if the seed sprouts. Time, sunlight, water, shade, all would be independent variables. You test all individually. The sprouting would be the sole dependent variable. Why? Think about it. What's affecting what? Would the sprouting of the broccoli seed affect the sunlight? No. The shade? No. The passage of time? No. The amount of water? No. It'd be the other way around. Those variables would all be independent variables that might affect one dependent variable, the sprouting of the broccoli seed. So you see, the correlate the hypothesis could be a whole other story about what you think causes the plant to grow. But in the tests, as this person is talking about, this person from University of Berkeley talks about, every one of these tests has they're changing something different. One changed the time, one changed the heat, one changed the temperature, one changed all this. But those all affected the time at which it took for the seed to sprout, the dependent variable. So you guys don't stop confusing because it's been going on for years.
all right, are you finished?
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. Sorry. Thanks.
Okay, so you kind of said that there in the middle of it. You understand that all the cause and effect in a natural science relates to energy. You have to kind of change the energy of it. You think that if you just observe the phenomenon, the effect, then you have now found a cause and effect relationship. That's just not true. That is what we're trying to point out to you, that it's pseudoscience. I can just change the, okay, let me change you the variable of time to see what causes murder. Okay, so let's say if I look at murders in winter, I'm changing the time, it goes down. And in a summer, the murders go up. So did time cause the murders to go up? Or is this just a correlative that we've uh, studied? Okay, that's what
If
that
your
happened
hypothesis is that I
my
think the murders happen more often in summer than winter, and I'm going to show that by saying when
by
they actually occur,
manipulating the
then you would be
time.
true. So that hypothesis would be validated by this particular study, which where independent variable was time, which was, it's not really time like as a
Yeah,
clock
you
goes
just
by,
said it. You
but
say,
the
yeah,
season,
you
but the
think that
season
time, the
of when.
season, caused the murders to happen.
No, that's not what they're saying. They're saying
Exactly.
they're saying that more murders happen in summer than winter. That's their hypothesis. It has
That's called
time
a
as a factor in there.
correlative. So
Well, okay,
you
that
can,
was the experiment though. You just showed that by changing the season, you found out that more murders occurred. That was a valid test, valid
it's
scientific
not
test.
a natural, it's
Oh
not
my
natural
God,
science.
really? Come on.
Yes, you literally think that time will cause murders to happen.
No, person sticking a
Okay,
knife in someone's chest causes the murder.
right.
We're
So
talking
you
about something
think that
different.
in experiment you can just manipulate whatever you want.
Right.
This is what trying to, we're trying to tell you what natural science is. And you're trying to use these, what do they call it? A clinical studies. You're trying to correlate these, they only find correlation and calling that science. Okay, I'm trying to give you the did he leave? Oh no. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to give you the definitions of natural science. Natural science finds a cause and effect relationship. You have to manipulate energy in some way so you can have to cause an effect of natural observing phenomenon. You are calling what it normally is called a clinical study to find out what correlates work. Like finding out that more murders happen in the summer. It's just a clinical study. Okay, it's not natural science.
Okay, now let's relate that to the planets. This is my point that the planets, yeah, so when they're telling us what the planets are made of, that's all theory. They cannot know that. This is my point. Do you understand? That's pseudoscience, isn't it? Isn't it, Zanick?
No, astronomy is one of the most fundamental sciences
It's
that there are.
pseudoscience, Zanick.
Oh man.
Zanick, it's pseudoscience because how do you manipulate something? You don't even know what your hypothesis that you put forward. You haven't validated it by going. You would need to go there. You cannot know
You
what the
don't need
planets
to go
are
there. That's
from here.
ridiculous. Come on.
No, it's not ridiculous because that's how you know. Everything that would be said would
That's
be
not how you know. You make
theoretical.
an experiment. Say you want to find out,
I'm
like, just
sorry.
period.
Look. How do we know? How do we know what Saturn is? How do we know what Uranus is? We haven't been there to know.
Stop
Okay?
talking about my
We don't even know
Uranus,
what the
all right?
moon is. We don't even know what the moon is. We don't even know what the sun is. We don't know these things. Okay? We
What do you
don't
mean
know
don't
what
know?
they
We know
are.
a lot about them. What are you talking about? Of
We
course we know
don't
a
know
lot about
what
them.
they are. We
We
don't
do know
know
what they
what
are
they are. No, we don't.
by the tests that we
We don't know
conduct,
what they are.
the scientific experiments
We
that we
don't know their
conduct to determine
constitution.
what the sun is.
We don't know what their constitute. I'm sorry, we don't know what their constitutes are. Now you're lying. We do not know what their
I never
constitutes
lie.
are. We don't know. We haven't been there to actually touch it and manipulate it. We don't know that. The same with Saturn, Pluto, and the rest of the planet, Neptune, and all the planets up there. We don't know what they are. We've just given them names. That's it. We don't know what Mars is. We've never been there. Okay? That's my point. Looking for a telescope, you cannot deduce anything in the way of the planet's constitution and what it's made of. We don't know.
Have you
That's
heard
my
of
point.
a term called the observational sciences? Have you heard about that?
No such thing.
I've heard
Well,
of the
that there is
observational
actually. You look it up.
sciences and
Go look it up.
what they put. I'm talking now. I'm responding, and what they put forward is thrown in the toilet, as far as I'm concerned, because it's all theory. It's not the truth. I can't use it. Can't use theories. I don't live by theories.
Right. So observational science is at its core pseudoscience because it says observational science is a scientific method that involves observing variables without manipulating them. So you need to manipulate something for an experiment. You can't
Well,
have an experiment without an independent variable.
that's an observational study that draws inferences from a sample of population of the where the independent variable is not under control of the researcher.
Inferences are not the truth. That's another word for theories, hypothesis. That's all
And
an
you said
inference is.
Wait a
It's
observational
a
minute, wait a
suggest.
study.
minute.
Don't interrupt me, please. It's a
That
suggestion,
is- That's
and a
rich.
suggestion is not the truth. A suggestion is not the truth. Thank you.
And a study is not an experiment.
It supports this experiment. It supports my hypothesis. It is an experiment. Obs-
No, it
Observational
isn't.
science is a science where it's not possible to construct controlled experiments in the area under study. For example, astronomy. It's not possible to create or manipulate stars or galaxy in order to observe what happens.
Right, and that
So you
alone
have so you have to
disqualifies it as
theorize it.
being science. That makes it
No, because
pseudoscience.
Yes,
they can do other types
yes,
of
that's it. That's
experiments.
pseudoscience, and that's pseudoscience at its essence, right there. Because you can't manipulate anything. You have to suggest, infer, and theorize. That's not the truth. I can't use that. That's bullshit. A child
Okay.
can theorize and
Well,
infer. Okay, thank you.
observational sciences are
So listen.
real
No.
sciences that avert
Listen, Zanik.
recording
Zanik,
natural phenomena.
listen, Zanik, because I'm going to talk all over you. Listen.
You already
I
do.
can
You
take the
already are talking
I
all
can.
over me.
I'm talking now.
Of course
I
you
am going
are.
to
All
take.
you do
I
is
am going
talk.
to take. I am going to take the child's theory over the adult scientist theory. I have that right. I can choose which one of the pseudosciences I can take. So I can take the child's theory instead of the adult one. You see what I mean? Because it has nothing. It has no worth. Is my point.
It does
Nothing.
actually. So let
No,
me
it
let me
doesn't.
explain.
It doesn't.
Observational sciences are used in many fields, including astronomy, biology, and earth science. We can look at the observe. We can look at the behavior of the baboon in the wild and use observational sciences without ever touching the baboon, just watching what they do. So it's recording the natural phenomena without manipulate them.
What's the phenomenon?
According to the planets, regarding the planets, it has no worth because you have to infer. You
It
can't
has
go there to touch. That has no
astronomy,
worth.
weather patterns,
It
medical
has
studies.
no
All these
worth.
don't have worth. Are you
Astronomy
kidding
has
me?
no worth.
All
Astronomy
you
has
need:
no worth.
magnifying glasses, thermometers, satellites,
Astronomy has no worth, not
stethoscopes
one
for
merit
other.
of worth.
Okay,
Tell me
I
how
can't ever
astronomy
say anything,
improves
Jen.
our lives.
All you do is
How
talk.
does astronomy
Motor mouth.
broaden
My
our
God.
horizon and improves our lives? Astronomy, tell me how. There you go. There you go. You see, you can't tell me how astronomy improves our lives. It doesn't. That's why it doesn't. Mic check, mic check. Can I be heard?
Yeah, you're heard.
Okay, good. Yeah, because he went dead there, so he must have just disappeared. He'll be back in a minute. But yeah, astronomy is worth nothing. It has no bearing on our
Really?
lives. It's just stories. They're just
Weather
stories. That's what they
patterns,
are.
medical
Stories.
studies, all these things affect your life positively, and they're using observational
Medical
science.
studies, would have a bearing. I'm talking specifically about astronomy, not the other two you mentioned. Stick to what I tell you. Stick to what
Well,
I tell you. I
there are
tell
other
you,
things that astronomy.
astronomy is worth nothing. Astronomy is a waste of time and money. It's a
Okay.
science. It's pseudoscience. It shouldn't even be used. Those people should be removed their licenses and get a real job. Fucking lying bastards.
Well, we're talking about observational sciences, which astronomy is no different than weather patterns or medical
Astronomy is
studies.
not a
As far as the
science.
type of test a
Astronomy
type.
is not a
Okay,
science.
my God, Jen, for
Well,
Christ's sake,
it's not a science, is it? It's not a science.
yeah, it is a science actually.
It's
It's an
not a
observational
science. It
science.
most certainly not. Nothing
It's an
there you can
observational
manipulate.
science. Are you disagreeing?
I'm telling you now, I'm disagreeing. Of course, I'm disagreeing
Okay. Well, what's your basis for disagreement? Do you have any evidence
because you
or
can't
proof of that?
manipulate anything. There's nothing you can manipulate, and you can't go there to know what they
You
are.
can. Of course, you're going to. I mean,
You're not
that's
letting me finish. You're asking me to tell you. I'm trying to tell you, right? That what they tell me those planets are made of is lies. They haven't been, are lies. Sorry, they haven't been there to confirm anything. How did they validate? Confirm.
their
See,
claims and hypotheses are based on their observations.
unfortunately, they're not based on being there and confirming.
You
That's
don't
the
need
problem
that.
you've
There's
got.
no requirement of having to
I
be
need to
somewhere
go there. I'm sorry, I will never
to
accept.
validate your hypothesis. No,
I
there's
will
not.
never accept a story without a validation, and that would mean I would have to go there to check. So the scientist says, "You're saying it's made of this and that and this constitution." Okay, let me go to get in my rocket now and go and check it, so I know that it's correct. Okay, can't do that, can I?
No one ever said you had to do that, by the way. Only you have said that.
I would need to do that. I would need to do that to validate. Otherwise, I'm going to fall foul, as Carl Sagan said, to a bamboozle, hoodwink. Yeah, thank you.
Well, okay. Well, observational science, by definition, is talking about things like astronomy and other things like
Yeah,
weather patterns or medical studies, this kind of thing. It's where you cannot, in your words, go there. It's still a science. The only thing that you can't do is go there and touch
it's
it.
pseudoscience because it
That's
doesn't
not what
follow the
pseudoscience means.
scientific method.
As opposed
It doesn't
to,
follow the scientific method, so it'd be considered pseudoscience because you haven't got the dependent and independent variables. You can't validate everything.
you're talking about you're confusing pseudoscience with supernatural.
No, I'm not doing that at all. I'm telling you now, simple, basic English, that we cannot go there to confirm what I'm being told. Therefore, it is theory only. It is not the truth. And a theory I cannot use. Okay? That's what it is. Fucking
Okay.
hell. Good. Glad you understand now. Astronomy is not a science. Cosmology is not a science. It's all fucking pseudoscience shit. Medical science, on the other hand, has some pseudoscience in it, but most of it is science because you can do a lot of manipulating. Okay?
Medicine is mostly pseudoscience.
Allopathic medicine, that is, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what
it's
you've been
about
arguing, really?
5% science and 95% pseudoscience.
Quackery. Let's get it right. Quackery, their own terminology. It's quackery, isn't it? 95%. So I would agree with you there again, yeah. Nice one, Rayleigh. So do you agree that astronomy isn't a science and cosmology isn't a science? Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing to manipulate, nothing to verify.
Thank you. There you've lost. You may as well just give up.
Hardly by someone who's confused what's the word down to the basic foundation of what science really is. Yes,
It's called
astronomy is a science. It is an observational science, and observational sciences are real sciences. Sorry,
They're
you
not.
don't have to go
They're
there to
not.
prove
They're
that
not, mate.
they're real.
They're pseudoscience. Real pseudoscience is what they are. Real pseudoscience nonsense. Trash. All right, good. I'm glad you understand. Glad you're getting the message now. They bring their pseudoscience dogma. You know these flat Earth globers. You know the flat Earth globers. Who are they? They are flat earthers who are in denial, spouting out globe, 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 but they're actually flat earthers by default, and they're going to be flat earthers. Flat earthers going to be. That's the new name for the glober, the flat earther glober, because they're living on a flat earth and denying the flat earth and shouting out globe, and they exhibit the 4Ds, desperately trying to deceive you dishonestly, disorder. Desperate to deceive you dishonestly, disorder. The 4Ds. That's come from Jin's Flat Earth Glober's psychological evaluation book. It's a good read. Yeah, where's that meme that I've got? I've got to find it. Hang on a second. Let me give you a definition of pseudoscience properly, so you understand. Oh.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear. I want to, Zanick. What could you give an example of of pseudoscience? What would be a pseudoscience, in your opinion?
A pseudoscience would be religion. That's a
Religion.
pseudoscience.
What? Why? What makes that a pseudoscience?
Because you cannot ever use any experiments to support a hypothesis of things that are claimed in religion.
Now,
Like
are
there's God.
the things now that these things that are claimed in religion, are they claimed to be science?
That's not the question. You asked what a pseudoscience was.
Right. Yeah, but that's part of what makes a pseudoscience is that it
It's
does
based
claim
on
itself.
pseudoscience. Okay, make it more broad. Pseudoscience is based on a belief system. It's based on belief, not on things that are testable or even want to be testable or provable or substantiated with any kind of evidence. It's evidenceless. It's belief. That's what pseudoscience is. At least what I'm talking about here has evidence and has experiments that are conducted, repeatable, and you can validate your hypothesis in any of those disciplines that are considered observable sciences. They're not pseudosciences. Just because you can't go there and land on the moon doesn't mean the moon isn't there and you can't do tests about certain things that you hypothesize about. Like if I make, I think it's made out of certain material and I think it's this much mass. Well, if it's this much
You
mass, then
can't
it should
prove
have
any
a.
of that. You can't
Wait
prove
a
any
minute.
of that. You can
Anyway,
state numbers, but
Hold
you
on,
can't
Jen.
well,
prove
Hold
them.
on.
you can do tests whether you like them or not. That's not the point. You can do some tests in pseudoscience. You can't do any tests. There's nothing. It's all a belief-based system. There's no tests that can be achieved, experiments that can be conducted that support any hypothesis.
All right, I'm gonna read a couple definitions of pseudoscience because it sounds like you don't know what it is. Um, so the first definition from Oxford says pseudoscience, a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method. And then I'll just go quickly read what Wikipedia.
Didn't I say almost exactly that for
No,
word?
no, you didn't.
Yes, I did. A belief system where that is not
Mm,
based on science and
right,
cannot be
but
validated through experimentation.
but there's a big missing factor here.
What's that?
Yeah, and he didn't
Mistakenly
say that.
regarded, right?
Yeah,
And
he
let's
didn't
bounce
say
that
that
off of
anyway.
what let's hold on, Jen. Let's bounce that off of what Wikipedia says. Pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, or practices that claim to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. So For something to be pseudoscience, it must claim to be science. I've never met.
I said that too. You must have not been listening. I said it cannot be supported by any scientific method or cannot have a hypothesis
You
that can be
didn't say that.
substantiated.
You
I
Right, well,
didn't
said
just
say
that.
that.
because no, you didn't
Yeah,
say that.
yeah.
I did that. I
Listen,
You
specifically
never
talked
said
about
that.
no,
a
you're
You never
beating
hypothesis
said
that
around the
that.
cannot be
bush.
You never
supported.
said that. You
No,
never
you're
said
going.
that.
Go
You're
I
back and
was
listen to the
listening. You
tape.
never said
I
that.
said
no, bro.
specifically that it
You
cannot
never
be
said that.
supported by.
You never said that.
I said the word hypothesis, and I talked about how it could not be supported by any type of experimentation.
You never said that at all. You
Oh
never
No,
my
said
that's
God!
that
fine.
Because
at
you're
Hold
all.
on,
always
dude.
talking,
You never
Jen.
said
You're
those
never
words.
listening. What the
Jen,
You
hell?
never
hold
said
on,
those
Jen.
words.
Jen, please hold on a
Sorry.
minute, Jen. I'll let you talk to him in a minute. Let me just finish this out. So like,
Anyway, I agree with you. Everything you're saying, I've
but
said,
wait, but
whether you
wait.
remember it or
I'm
not.
just
I
highlighting a
agree.
very
It's
important
true.
difference.
That's what pseudoscience is.
Right, but
Now,
I'm
I didn't say
highlighting the difference.
mistakenly, the word mistakenly, but go ahead.
Right. I'm just highlighting the difference between what you told me and what I'm reading in definitions. And I never heard you specify explicitly that it is that whatever is being called pseudoscience, it must be regarded or claimed to be science in the first place. So just because something can't be validated or something that isn't validatable with science or with experiments or whatever, that alone doesn't make it pseudoscience. It would have to be two things. It would have to be claimed to be science and also unable to be put through the scientific method. So you're only hitting on half of the definition of
I hit it.
pseudoscience.
I hit it indirectly, but I said both of those to that effect. But go ahead. I didn't say it in those words, but I did say exactly what you said a little
Right.
differently. So go
Right,
ahead.
but that's why I'm coming down on what you said about how religion is a pseudoscience, which it can't be the case because religion is not claimed to be science. So therefore it cannot be pseudoscience.
Well, there's some things that are claimed in religion that are pseudoscience, that are claimed to be true, that can't be backed up with any type of scientific methodology. So that's
Well, yeah, well
maybe not
there's
a
other
great
there's
example,
it's
but the
context.
main example, pseudoscience, is something that is like astrology. That's a pseudoscience.
Okay, I can see astrology being a pseudoscience. It is it claimed to be a science?
Yeah, most people that believe in astrology definitely believe that it is valid and true and is a science.
Wow, Google doesn't like that. It says no, astrology is not a science, but rather a pseudoscience.
Yeah,
Well, at least it's
exactly.
right about
So
something.
you exactly said in those words exactly what I said. Do you agree?
Yeah, about astrology. Yeah,
Yeah,
not
it's
about religion
astrology.
though. I mean,
Well,
religion
I
does
mean,
not claim to be science. That's
tell me where really some things in religion are said to be true and that it cannot be validated with scientific method, but they do claim it to be a type of science.
like what? Give me an example.
I can't think of one. There's millions of them within religion, but I can't think of one that would be best to give you as an example. There's so many things in the Bible that are like that. History wise, all this can be is considered science. That maybe the shape of the earth, that might be even be touched on there, in the and how the earth was formed. This is all pseudoscience.
I don't. I can't get on board with that, man. I don't see
Well,
how.
maybe if you do a search, it might come out better. I don't have Let me do a search real quick. Is religion? Maybe it's a bad example then. I gave a bunch.
What's a bad example?
Oh, religion in general, but I think does religion have pseudoscience aspects?
Mm, oh, I think it wouldn't be something that comes down on like the Bible itself or religion itself, but it could definitely be coming down on individuals who try to claim that science is happening at a certain
Well,
point.
so it is a pseudoscience. I mean, not in general, But the areas like, for example, that lack empirical evidence, creationism. It attempts to refute the scientific theory of evolution based on biblical interpretations of certain interpretations of miracles that claim supernatural events as verifiable occurrences. So that would categorize that area of religion as pseudoscience. So let's just move on from there rather than getting pedantic about whether religion or what because the basic is, do I know what pseudoscience is? Yes, and I gave you a good definition of it. You backed it up with your colloquial definitions. So what do we need? What do we need to talk about? We're both in agreement.
Well, we both agree that for something to be called a pseudoscience, that it must be claimed to be a science.
Uh, Awkward wording, but yes.
Yeah. Well, how would you word it?
I would say for something to not be pseudoscience, it would have to stand up to the scrutiny of the scientific methodologies of hypothesis and then experimentation with evidence to support the hypothesis.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if something works within the bounds of the scientific method and the rules therein, then it can be called science. But if it breaks any of the rules within the scientific method, then but still continues to call itself science, like if it cuts corners and tries to use things that aren't valid variables like time,
Well, time is valid. We already went over this.
then once the rules of the method have been broken and rewritten to work around whatever they're trying to do, there that is when it becomes a pseudoscience, because it's still claimed to be empirical science, yet it is not, because the empirical method used to establish that science has been broken for the time being. So violating the scientific method and continuing to call what you're doing science is pseudoscience, basically, in a nutshell.
As long as I have the ability to conduct experiments that are valid, that follow the scientific method, you may or may not like the evidence. It may not be strong enough for you, but it doesn't preclude it from being science, and the methodology is scientific. Like I can do this thing on the moon. I can say, well, I can't go there because Jen wants to go there and touch it. But I'm going to do these other experiments. I'm going to say, what's the period of the moon, and I'm going to look at it and see some of the optical data from my observations. I'm going to do some. We're going to send it. Well, I don't want to send anything there because we want to start guessing about whether the moon is real and whether rockets can go in space. Let's just stay on things we can actually observe just by looking at it. What it's reflecting and shapes and its structures and that kind of thing. That we can provide a lot of science on it. Now, whether that's strong enough to support whether it's real or not, that's up to you. But that science can be done because it's something that actually is repeatable, demonstrable, that these events or these observations are real, and that these changes occur based on time, based on different types of optics changes and lasers, whatever, right? So we can actually do tests on the moon, even though we can't go there. Again, you might not like it, you might think they're weak, but they're still following the scientific method, and they are tests. You can say, yeah, great, I like your support for the hypothesis. I don't believe it because those tests that you did, those experiments you did were bullshit. But it still followed the scientific method.
So you're talking about figuring out what the moon is?
Whatever your
What?
hypothesis about the moon is, whether it's real or whether it does it exist. I can.
Well,
That's my
no, that
hypothesis.
can't
I
be a
think it
science
exists. I think the
question.
moon exists and it revolves around the Earth. Roughly every you know once every 24 hours or 20 once every yeah once every 24 hours. I can make that hypothesis, and then of course to support it, I can start doing my observations and show, yeah, see, it does exist, and it does have a light, it does have craters, and it does revolve around the Earth roughly every 24 hours, a
Oh,
little
I
more.
don't know. That's a deep one, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I
that's
think
how
that's
science.
kind of it's a lot. There's a lot of begging the questions going on in that one.
No, I mean
like,
you can make
like
any hypothesis you
I
want.
think if you would water it down, you could say something like the moon appears to rise in the sky at a certain time and goes down at a certain time or whatever. You can't just say, "Oh, it therefore there's the moon going around the planet." You know, it's begging the question of the planet. Like you don't
No,
really
because I can start doing measurements of how far away it is and how fast,
can't what?
what is period of.
How do you measure to the moon?
Yeah, easily just get two spots on the Earth and get an angle to the moon at the exact same time, and then see what this angle difference is, and I can get a rough idea how far away it is. I can compare it to other objects like the sun, and when I see a half moon, where I know the sun is directly a 90-degree angle between it, the moon, and myself, that I have a triangle there, and I can then get a rough difference of how many
But wait,
proportion.
but for you to do that, you need to know the distance to the moon in the first place.
No, I can get proportions, and then I can find I get proportion. I can say, well, I may not know how far the moon is, but it's 400 times farther away. How do I know that? Because I made this measurement with this other object that is illuminating this, and it's making us it's making assumptions that the sun is the light that is illuminating the moon. But if it is, this is what we find, and then let's just find the distance to the moon. Well, we can do that by land-based measurements of angles, where you're 500 miles away and I'm 500 miles away from you, and I measure an angle to the moon at the exact same time. I call you, hey, measure it now, go. And I get differences in angles, and I can say, well, that angle difference will show me how far away the moon is too.
Well, couldn't you do the same thing with the sun? And the sun and the moon seem to be about the same size, so you
No,
pretty
because
much
yeah, that's another good test. That'd be part of my hypothesis as well, or part of my experimentation. Yet I do that test with the sun, and I don't get an angle change. Why is that? That'd be part of my evidence. So one gives you an angle change, the other one doesn't. Means one is closer than the other, even though they're the same angular size.
So let me interrupt here, gents. In fact, there is a globe believing professor who comes around our servers quite regularly. Very, very nice guy, even though we hold quite a few different positions on things. He has done the math. Him and another fellow went out and they, like you say, they took their relative angles to the moon, and Matthew did the calculations and came back to say that it was 3,000 miles.
For what?
The distance to the moon. So even though Matthew doesn't hold that, he said that the mathematics do indicate that the moon is 3,000 miles from the Earth, even though that's not the position that he holds. So the key is, as my esteemed colleague there, I didn't catch exactly who that was, but my point being here is he made a very good point to you, is that first you have to assume the distance and then you pick your mathematics.
No.
That's the
and
problem with that. And
Well, hold on.
so
So here's the deal with that particular idea. So yes, you will get an angle change that dictates that being 3,000 miles away. So if you think it's 3,000 miles away and you watch the sun's and the moon set, then you're saying that's 3,000 miles away to where you can't see it anymore. That's got a problem. But the main problem I have with that is that if you do validate that, then that means the sun is still going to be 1.2 million miles away. So that's a problem because it didn't change when you made those. So then it begs the question also, like, what's the shape of the surface? Is the surface curved? Well, then you doing the sextant type maths where you start realizing that you can't have a linear relationship between the position change going from one position to another that measured that 3,000-mile distance to the moon. You can't do that and have a one-to-one relation. You can't do that and have a one-to-one relationship because that requires the surface to be flat. Excuse me, to be round. If it's flat, then it would be a whole different relationship between the angles and the object in the sky that you're measuring, the moon, for example.
wait a minute, hold on a minute. You're measuring elevation angles to the moon?
Measuring co-altitude angles or zenith angles to the moon.
Uh-huh. So you still need a 90
Yeah, then from where? I don't need a 90. All I
from
need
your
is
feet, from
all I need is
where
zero.
you are, from where you're observing. You
No,
need that to be 90.
I just got done telling you I'm not using an elevation angle. I'm only using a zenith angle. I drop a plumb bob.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, of course you can. I drop a plumb bob. I get it. You know what a zenith angle is, right?
Yeah.
Zenith angle is the angle from vertical to the object. I don't need any
Right.
horizontal.
Right. But
All I got, I drop a plumb bob. That's a straight down. That's a straight down line, and I get an angle to the moon, and I get an angle of 20 degrees. The elevation angle, if you could measure it with the horizon or however you want to do it, that would be 70 degrees. But
right, but if you complete
hold on.
the angle has to
Well,
be
the
90. It has
co-altitude
to
angle.
ultimately reach 90.
No, there's no 90. I don't need any.
It
All I
has
need
to
is the.
be.
Oh no, there isn't any 90. I don't have to. I can a horizontal. I can drive them, but I don't need it for anything. What good is
But
it?
you're dropping the plumb. You're taking the plumb bob, and the line's going down to your feet, and then
Correct.
the other line's going from your feet to the
Yeah.
star. Yeah. And
Okay.
the altitude angle is the angle between the zenith and the star,
Correct. That's
but you're
it.
still using the ground. You're still on the
No, you're
ground
not
and
using the
measuring from the
ground.
ground.
That's
So
the point.
there's
You're not using the ground. You're just using the angle. That's the plumb bob, and then you get an angle. They call it a zenith angle. It's very simple.
right, but
And
the
that
opposite
equals
side
that
of
is
that
synonymous.
angle
That is
is the
synonymous with
elevation angle.
that is synonymous with the co-altitude angles. Not you don't need anything else other than a plumb bob and an angle to the moon.
And every altitude angle has an elevation angle on the counterpart. You
You
can't
could
have one without the other.
you could subtract it from 90 and get that, but you don't need it. It's not
Right,
required.
right, but
You're just saying that. That's not needed. There's no reason you're even having this discussion because you know it to be true. I can drop a plumb bob and get an angle from the plumb bob without any other information and get a 20-degree angle to the moon. That 20-degree angle will tell me the GP of the moon. That GP of the moon will be 20 times 60, 1,200 miles.
Yeah.
of 1,200 miles, what kind of
Yeah,
miles are those?
nautical
Are
miles.
those, are those curved miles?
Uh, it has to be because it can't be linear.
No. Well, it has to be linear if it's
Hang on,
miles.
hang on, hang on. Where are you dropping the plumb bob from? A plumb bob needs a wall. So you understand? Where are you dropping your
No,
plumb bob from?
make a
Where are you
triangle. Make a
dropping it from?
triangle structure like a
Where are
teepee.
you
If you can.
dropping your plumb
Drop
bob from? Where are you
anywhere
dropping it from?
from my
Where?
teeth. From my teeth.
Tell me where?
From
Where are
my
you dropping
teeth.
it from?
From my
No, you're
teeth.
not doing it from your teeth. That's bullshit.
Yes, from my teeth.
Where are your feet? Where are your feet?
Who cares?
We
On
do
a
care.
rock.
See,
On a
you're,
rock.
you
On a rock
and
in a
where's the
swimming pool.
rock?
Who
And
cares?
where's the rock? Where's the rock?
On the
On a
ground.
horizontal plane. On a horizontal
No,
plane of Earth.
no,
That's
there's
where
no.
it's at.
You're
Yes.
making things up, Jen.
Yes.
You're making things up now.
I'm not making things up at all.
You are.
Not at all. You're making things up.
I'm not making anything up. You
You're
can't figure
making
out that I
things
can
up.
drop a plumb bob and get an angle to the star. Do you know what a
You
plumb bob
not.
is?
You're
It's
going
just
to need a
dropping a string.
horizontal baseline first.
Just drop a string.
Whatever you
Hang
buy,
it
it's
from a
going to
tree,
have a
Jen.
horizontal baseline.
Jen. I got a tree branch. I tie a string with a pointed weight hanging from it.
You've got to have a
Hold on,
horizontal
Jen.
baseline.
Can you follow me? You're being ADD. You're being total ADD. I got a string, Jen. I got a weight at the bottom of it. I hang it from a tree. I measure an angle from that straight line down to the moon. I get an angle of 20 degrees. That's all I need.
From
That's
that
my
tree.
co-altitude angle. That is the zenith angle.
That
Period.
mountain,
End of
that tree
story.
would be on a horizontal baseline of Earth.
You're just making
It
things up now.
wouldn't
You're
be
just
on.
talking
It
words.
wouldn't be on. So if you have it on a curve, yeah, you could still get a plumb straight line from an angled up tree actually. So yeah, you'd be all right. That's a clever one.
Of course I'm
So
right.
you could use the tree. You could use a tree branch to get
I
your.
just want
But it'd be
I just
moving.
want a
It would
zenith
be
angle,
moving around a
Jen.
bit though, wouldn't it? It would be moving around though. That's the only thing. The
No.
branch would move. Yes,
I
the
just
branch would move.
get it.
You
No,
have to
nothing's
wait till the
moving.
branch. You'll have to wait till the branch isn't moving, wouldn't you? You'd
Well,
have
then put
to.
it on a rock. Then you're on a fucking mountain and you have a rock and you tie a string to the rock and it hangs down. Oh my God! Stop being goofy. You're being really
I'm not
stupid.
being
Come on.
goofy. I'm just making. I'm being
You're being
precise.
stupid.
We're
You're being
being. No,
really
you're being
stupid.
stupid.
No,
You're
I'm
being
not.
stupid. Visual.
Just telling
You
you I
are.
want to get the angle to the moon. And you're going, oh, I got it back to the horizontal. Where's the flat plane? I don't need any of that. You're just all nonsense. Stop it.
And no,
It's
it's not
ridiculous.
nonsense at all. I'm being precise, making sure you're not
You're
lying.
not being precise.
Of
Oh,
course I
the
am.
branch is moving.
Here comes the
Yeah,
spiral.
the branch would be moving. the branch would be
Okay,
moving.
the rock. We got it tied to a rock then.
Right, so I was correct. I was correct to question the branch, wasn't I?
No, you're
I'm
not. I'm
making
just trying to
sure.
dispel any.
Yes, I am.
There's no
I'm
reason
making
I can get.
sure.
I can get
I'm
a
making
perfectly
sure because
accurate
you've got
answer from an oak
because you've
tree
come out with a lot
branch.
of pseudoscience
I
dogma.
can get a
You've
perfectly
come out with
accurate answer.
pseudoscience
Jen,
dogma
stop talking
to
for a
cover
second.
your ass,
Motor
but it's
mouth.
not covering your ass now.
Motor
Your
mouth.
ass is exposed. Your
Motor
motor
mouth.
mouth, Zanick. Motor mouth. That's you, Zanick. Your
No,
motor
I'm
mouth.
trying to
You're
tell you
full
I
of
can put
nonsense.
a
You got
branch on an
nothing
oak
but the
tree.
verbal diarrhea.
Motor
You've
mouth.
got
Motor
nothing
mouth.
but the
You're still
verbal
going.
diarrhea and the brown stuff. Of course, I'm going
Never
on.
mind.
I'm
We
making
had a
sure you
good
don't
conversation
talk.
going before you jumped in.
I'm not jumping in at all. You didn't have no good conversation because you were just dogmatic in your
No.
position.
So
Yes.
Bushnell and I were talking about it.
Pseudoscience
I
dogma.
my
Pseudoscience
God.
dogma.
Please,
Astronomy
Jen.
is not a science.
For the love of God and all that is holy. Can you just be quiet?
Uh,
Is it possible?
No, I'm not going to be
Your
quiet
mouth
for you.
just
Never
wants
in
to
my
just
never in my
blather,
hundred
just
in my
diarrhea mouth.
lifetime will I be quiet for you, Zanick. Never. With your Zanick Airlines that fly over a globe ball that you can't prove, Zanick. Right. And we've got the Globetards flatline with the in-flight telemetry telling us that aeroplanes fly horizontal over a flat Earth. There is no globe. Okay? And the distance to the moon isn't known by you. You don't know the distance to the moon. So shut up, your 1,200 miles. Silly ass. Okay, now you can speak. And don't make it pseudoscience dogma.
All right. So what I was saying is that you could then validate that measurement because a scientist already was here. Someone had mentioned it. That mentioned you do the angles from the sun or the moon, you get a distance of 3,000 miles, and that can be then validated by sextance measurements, whether that is a surface that is beneath you that is either round or flat. If it's round, it all makes sense because the relationship between the angles are linear. Angles and distances are linear. This means every time I move out 60 miles, I get 1 degree change. Every time I go out 1 mile, I get a minute of change. That can't work on a flat surface because trigonometry does not work that way. That's all I was going to say.
Unfortunately, you will always need a horizontal baseline when you're using your sextant as it's a flat Earth
Why?
tool, not a
Why?
globe Earth tool.
Why?
Because you have to have a flat baseline to begin with. That's
Why?
why.
Why?
You can't work it from a
I
globe
say
ball
why. You
Earth.
just because I do. All you're saying is I say why. I ask why. You
No,
say
you don't.
because
You
I do.
don't. You don't
Why,
get. You don't
Jen?
get the
What's
90
the reason?
degrees. You don't
What's
get
the
the
reason?
90 degree. You're going to need a 90. You're going to
That's a
need a
horizontal.
90.
No big deal. Fine.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not
You
using the
don't
ground.
get that on on a
I'm on a
ball
mountain.
Earth.
I'm on a mountainside, and I'm gonna do this measurement. How do I find my 90 degree? There is it. Can I find a 90 degree? Is it possible?
I've
At the
never known anyone
horizon, yes,
using
you can. Yeah,
sextants.
yeah. Spheres don't have
No, you could
horizontal
drop a
planes.
plumb
Yeah,
bob and get a 90 degree angle between, which
yeah, yeah.
means
Plumb bob perpendicular to the plane of the horizon. Yeah, we know, we know.
no,
The
no
horizon,
horizon.
by
I'm
definition,
not
is
using a
horizontal.
horizon. What are you, a
Horizontal
caveman?
is parallel to the plane
Okay,
of the
between you and
horizon, my
Jen, my
friend.
God.
Hello? Horizontal is parallel to the plane of the horizon. You don't have horizontal planes on a sphere. Game over. We know plumb bobs is perpendicular to the plane of the horizon. You're not inventing anything new, my friend. Welcome to Flat Earth.
Thank you.
And
Well
same
done.
with
Welcome
miles
to the
too.
flat
You
of
ain't
truth.
using miles on a globe. Those are linear.
Correct. Distances are linear, not curved. 1 foot, 1 meter, 1 mile, 100 miles, linear. Yeah, this guy needs to get up to date with the flat earth debate.
Of course he does. Of course he does. He doesn't understand the flat earth tools. Is the earth a globe, Zanick? If so, what's the proof? What's your experience?
How can it be a globe if it's measured flat, Jen?
Exactly. I just want to hear him try to explain and have a laugh at what he's going
Well,
to come out with. The mental
simple,
gymnastics.
simple observational evidence is that we can measure optically. We can and also do other types of tests like the sextant. We can do a plumb line. We can do a zenith angle to an object, and then go 60 miles and see there's a 1 degree change. That would indicate a curved surface. We could do the mountains that are twice as high and twice as far in line with each other. That would indicate a curved surface. So there's a lot of things we can do to show that we have a curved surface.
Is the Earth a globe, Zanick? If so, what's the proof? What's the evidence? How did you prove it to yourself?
I
Please
just
explain.
gave you two very powerful.
No, you didn't give me anything. You gave me nonsense. That was nonsense, boy. Give
That's
me some
evidence.
answers, boy. Try harder, boy.
Two mountains, one twice as far as the other, one twice as high, the farther
Twice
one,
as
and
high.
they're
How do
not
you
in
establish the
line.
height of the mountains? Hold on a second. How do you establish the height of the mountains in the first place?
Barometric pressure, altimeter from a
Barometric
helicopter.
pressure? No. It's the height of the mountain is from sea level. Mean
Yes,
sea level. Yes.
yes.
So
And the
not
amount of
from
air
a sphere
pressure,
then.
and the amount
Not
of
from
air.
a sphere.
Are you
So
saying
not
that
from a
barometric?
sphere then.
Are you so sonic sensors that measure
So
altitude
not
are not accurate?
from
So
a
airplanes can't
sphere.
fly because they're going to crash into
Wait a
vertical
No.
minute.
mountains because
So
Yo,
not
yo,
from
oh
a
yo,
my
sphere
yo.
God, you
then.
are
All right,
so dumb as a
George.
rock.
All right, George. So you're mistaking altitude with elevation. Altitude is measured with air pressure. Elevation is not.
And by knowing the air qualities, we can determine within a very narrow margin of error the elevation of an object above sea level.
But it's not a measurement, though. You're not
It is.
measuring
That's
the
exactly what it
elevation.
is. It is a measurement.
So not from a
No, you
sphere
just
then,
said it
Zanick.
was.
When I take off in my airplane, it sounds I would be inputting the barometric pressure of
Airplane?
the temperature. Yeah, in an
Right,
airplane.
because airplane has
You're
altitude.
gonna need a horizontal plane in order to take off, man, to generate lift.
What
You
is
can't
wrong with
generate
you,
lift
George?
on a sphere,
George,
man.
you just jumped off the short bus, didn't you? No, you don't need a. I
Let's
have
have none of
there's
that.
runways that are
None of that.
downhill and lip up like a freaking ski jump in
No.
Chile.
On a sphere, everywhere is downhill, man.
Really?
Yeah. On a sphere, any vector
How's
you
that
go
possible?
will be down in
How?
respect to a horizontal plane. Yeah,
So
because it's
I
a
just
sphere.
if
No?
this if, so
And
if the Earth is so if the
you
Earth
go
is round,
downhill and you stop,
I
you
just
turn
push
around, you still go
my car
downhill.
and it should roll downhill for indefinitely, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
You wouldn't need an engine, yeah.
Yeah. Problem is the plumb lines are not parallel, so that would not
Plumb
work.
lines, no, they are just perpendicular to the plane of the horizon. And yes, all of them are parallel to one another.
Well, that it can be proven to be not true. All you have to do is a simple test of reciprocal zenith angles, and you'll find that to be untrue, George.
Zenith angles, yeah, they are perpendicular to the plane of the horizon. Hello?
Yeah, go do that test.
Yeah.
Perpendicular to
So
the planet
not
horizon.
spherical
Go do
then.
that. Go do that test and see if they're
No,
parallel.
no. So not spherical then.
Well, it
Parallel to
is
the plane of
spherical.
the horizon. The
You're like
horizon by
opposite
definition
guy.
is
You're like the opposite
horizontal.
guy. You live in the opposite world.
How do you have an horizon on a sphere? Huh? If
Kind
the
of a weird.
horizon, by definition, is horizontal, and all horizontals
Not
are parallel to the
horizontal.
plane of the
It's be
horizon,
horizontal
no.
around you, but it's not
All
horizontal.
horizontals are parallel to the plane of the horizon, and all plumb lines, or zeniths, are perpendicular to the plane of the horizon. That doesn't speak sphere, does it?
It does, loud and clear, actually, because even yeah.
Such an imbecile, this guy.
Wow, a lot of projection going on there,
I'm
Georgie.
sorry for the word, man. But what can I say? You demonstrated
Not a
to be
whole lot.
something that
You just
out
started
of
gibberish.
normal, man.
No,
You haven't studied
if
geometry,
you
have
do
you?
reciprocal zenith angles, go find your plumb bobs and go sight them with a theodolite. You'll
Lombok,
find that
you mean perpendicular to the plane of the horizon?
no, I don't mean
Again,
perpendicular to the horizon.
yeah,
I mean
but that's what it
perpendicular to
is.
horizontal.
Yeah,
Perpendicular
perpendicular to the plane of
perpendicular
the horizon, surface of
perpendicular
Earth.
horizon.
Yeah,
No, perpendicular to
perpendicular to the plane of the
horizontal. Yes,
horizon, zenith. If
horizon
you're
is
using
not
a sextant
horizontal.
for navigation, yeah, you'll need
I don't know why I do
three
this. It's like beating my head
zenith.
against the wall.
You'll need three different zeniths perpendicular to the same horizon.
No,
Yeah,
you don't.
yeah, oh, yeah, you do.
Just because you say it to be true doesn't mean it's true, George. You're confused.
It's not what I
Clearly.
say, it's what I've studied it to be. I've studied navigation.
Unfortunately, George, it doesn't work like that.
Oh, fortunately, it does. Even Gago Coutinho and Secadura Cabral, when they did the first flight transatlantic from Portugal to Brazil, and using the bubble section for the very first time when it developed, they proved the system is the same.
Incorrect. So why is this, George? Why is this in the sextant world that everyone knows about? You should know this. You seem to be looking into it quite a bit. Why is there a 60 nautical mile per 1 degree relationship that is consistent no matter where you travel on the Earth?
Nautical mile, you mean like linear distance, yeah?
Or I just distance, not
60
linear, just
nautical miles,
distance,
like linear. No, no, it must be
not
linear
linear.
because we're talking about
No,
miles.
not linear.
What do you mean not
Not,
linear?
I can't drive. I can't drive up
Can
a
you post
mountain.
the
I can't.
definition of
I
an?
don't know the
Can you
distance of a
post
curved
the
hill.
definition of
George,
a
you're being
nautical
ridiculous.
mile? Post the definition of a nautical mile on the chat, please, so we can read it all together. Definition, please. Mile, nautical or terrestrial doesn't matter. It's linear.
It is no way, shape, or form linear. It's based on the curved surface of 360
No,
degrees all the way.
What?
no,
George, George,
no.
let me finish the
It's
sentence.
based on the
George, let me
circle.
finish.
It's
George.
based on the circle, 360 degrees around the ground position. That's what it means. Yeah? Circle, not spherical. You don't know the difference, do you? Now, the miles is linear, a straight line, an azimuth, straight line from the ground position to you or from you to the ground position of the celestial. Linear. That's how you find your latitude, isn't it, Zanick? Elevation angle
Mile.
to Polaris, and you'll find your latitude in miles. Yeah? Linear.
No,
Yeah,
wrong.
mile, a unit of
Wrong. You
linear
subtract it from 90 to
measure.
get it well. You get your zenith angle, then you can subtract it from. Then you can get times it times 60 and find out how far you're away from the GP. So
Yeah,
you're wrong
yeah, you need
again.
a flat plane for that.
No, you don't. All you need is a deviation. All you need is all you need is a zenith angle. That's all you need. Times
Yeah,
60.
perpendicular to the plane of the horizon.
No, perpendicular to horizontal, maybe, but you don't
That's
need that.
exactly what it is.
You're
A
adding words and
no,
adding things you don't need.
zenith.
So
Hello,
why is the
zenith
relation?
is a
So why is
nautical
there?
term.
So why is the
Zenith
relation?
is a
So why?
nautical term
Oh my
that
God,
you
you're so
use when you
possible.
are
You're
observing
worse
the
than Jen.
horizon. Zenith is a term used in nautical navigation when you're observing the horizon and the celestial. Compared the celestial to the horizon, 90 degree, perpendicular to the horizontal plane or the plane of the horizon. Welcome to Flat Earth, Zenith. Again. Lasagna night's tonight. It's in the oven. It's cooking. So I still have like half an hour left
Oh,
to
nice.
entertain you, Zenick.
What did you put in
Oh well, just on top of the stove. I didn't put the oven on or anything. Time will cook it.
it?
I just need to wait half an hour. It'll be
Time,
cooked.
just wait. Yeah, time will cook it. That's
Yeah, just wait and the time will cook it.
right.
It's like when you ask someone, how far is something? And they'll tell you to, yeah, just half an hour. Half an hour away. What? So if I wait half an hour here, I'll be there.
Yeah, dude, time is definitely a control variable.
Obviously, we can manipulate time. Not even a constant. It's always changing. You know what that means, Zanick? The silence. There is no debate. That's what it means.
Like, let me just think of an example here, like for like plants. I think gardening is like an awesome science. Like learning about how plants grow and whatnot. That's super interesting and like super scientific. You know, you can't really get any more scientific than that.
Is it scientific?
Yeah.
What's the cause of plant growth?
Soil, light,
No, no, the
water,
cause. No, no, you're
the
mentioning
cause.
several causes. No. To be science, you need to have one cause to manipulate.
Well, that's completely
Mm,
incorrect. Make your hypothesis. Why don't you do this, Jen? You think you're so smart? Make a hypothesis of why plants grow or whatever your topic is, and let's talk about it. Because right now it seems like you're completely lost.
Jin's not talking. That was George.
I'm sorry, Jen. I meant George. Go ahead. Give us a hypothesis of some hypothesis of plants. Like plants grow for these reasons, and then we'll make some. Then we'll start conducting some tests, making
Well,
some
wait a
There is
experiments.
minute.
many
Wait a minute,
reasons
George.
as to
No,
why the
no,
plants
no, 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 no,
grow.
no,
They
no.
need soil, they need water, they
You
need
you
light,
wouldn't
they
just
need
say why
everything.
plants grow. That wouldn't be
Yeah.
the
Yeah. What's your
hypothesis. No,
hypothesis?
the
What's your
hypothesis would be
hypothesis?
more
There is
specific.
no one cause. There is no
Make it.
one
Make your
cause.
hypothesis.
No,
Well,
no,
now
no.
you said there was one
That would be
before. Now you're
silly.
saying there's not. There's more than one. So what? You said why does plants grow? Make a make a statement and let's talk about it. You can't. That's the problem here.
The cause of a plant growing is not what I'm talking about. No, I'm talking
Oh no,
about
you aren't. He was. Why don't you
right.
someone make a hypothesis, a story about what you think's happening, and we'll test it with experimentation. It's real simple. This is like you would do in a high school physics class.
Right. So you start with your plants, right? You have to control the variables that are uh required, like
First, give
the
me
dirt.
first give me your hypothesis. First,
Fermentation of fruit will cause alcohol.
fermentation of fruit will cause alcohol.
I don't like that one. Screw that. No, stick with plants. Like,
Why
how
not?
about um direct sunlight will cause faster plant growth.
So sunlight causes plant growth. It got to be a little more descriptive than that.
Sunlight will increase the speed of plant growth.
Maybe the intensity of sunlight will change.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Let's
because you're
just
gonna because how you're gonna experiment is you're gonna put some plants in the sun
Define
and some
plant.
plants in the shade.
okay.
Define plant.
No, George, you're riding off the rails, man. Let's not do that.
I know
Why
what is
don't
the
we
purpose of
define
lecturing?
dirt? Why don't we define water? Come on, dude. Why don't we define the life of the plant? You're going off the freaking rails, man. Cut it out.
Where's this spiral?
So if I have plants, I have two different plants, three different plants that are all the same plant, same seed, whatever, and I plant them all in the same size container with the same exact dirt, and I water them the same. Those are my control variables, right? All those different things that I'm going to keep the same between all my subjects. And then I'm going to manipulate the amount of sunlight they receive by placing them by the window or placing them in the shade. So my hypothesis is if plants receive sunlight, then they will grow more than the plants that don't receive sunlight. Is that fair? Seems like a
Yep.
fair
Yep.
hypothesis.
So your independent variable is going to be changing the amount of uh, intensity
Light.
of the light that it receives. Everything else will be the time will be the same, soil is the same, the water is the same, plants the same,
The
everything's the same.
time, the time will be the same too,
Yeah, yeah, time is the
because
same.
the time
That's
is
in
another
this case,
control
in this
variable.
yeah, in this case, you're absolutely right. All those things are all control variables. We're trying to not change this. All we're changing is the sunlight. That's the independent variable.
Yep.
And we're going to provide support for your hypothesis that more sunlight increases plant growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a perfect example of a valid hypothesis, and you're insinuating a certain experiment that would support that hypothesis. So we do the test. We have the shade one and the one in the sun, and the one in the sun obviously grows faster. Boom. You've just provided a ton of support for your hypothesis. Done. Great.
Well, I didn't provide support. I didn't just provide support for my hypothesis because it's a binary thing. Either it's true or false. I proved that when I changed the amount of sunlight for a plant, then the growth speed will increase.
You've
Yeah, but you're
provided
talking about
support.
the plant,
No
man.
proofs. No proofs in science.
What?
Just
Talking
support.
about the plant. It's already
Yes, George, a
germinated from a
plant.
seed. Yeah.
Yes, I know. We already went over this.
You
The
already
seed
have the
came from.
plant.
So what are we gonna do, George? We're gonna go to God and say, "Well,
You have the
God
no,
caused the
you
plant."
have the
How do
seed.
you? Yeah, I
The
know.
seed
God
needs to
gave me the seed.
germinate, man.
What's
Seed
the
needs to
cause of the
germinate.
seed? What's the cause of the egg or the chicken, man?
Now I
Come
can
on,
put the
George.
seed in
This
a
is
piece of
attempt number
paper with a bit of
2.
water, yeah,
I
and will
know.
germinate with no soil. The
Right.
seed
This is
only.
attempt number 2 to
It's not a
derail the
tree yet. It's not
conversation.
a plant yet. It's
I
just
know.
germinating
That's
out of the
strike
seed.
2, and one more strike. I'm muting you if you do that crap again. Knock it off. We're not talking about that.
Go
You
ahead,
want to
man.
prove
Mute.
God? Okay, God gave us the seed, George. So we
Prove
can't
God.
possibly do
Yeah.
science on anything because God gave us all
Nature
our
proves
nature.
God.
There's no such thing as natural science because it's all given to us by God, right? Come on, bro.
No, science is trying to understand God. How God
Ah,
made things. Man playing God.
So, okay. So, since we agree, Zanick, that that is a viable hypothesis and experiment with plants and sunlight, could you give me a viable hypothesis and experiment for a similar experiment regarding plants or light or water, something in the same field we're talking about, but using time as the independent variable instead of sunlight?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that nice segue into my response to your very clearly articulated and organized and thoughtful
Oh God.
idea. It was good. So
Thank
now
you.
I'll do the same thing you're doing, except this time we're going to put it in the sun, and we're going to keep all the things that you had the bright sun, and we're going to see what happens when I allow it to sit there in the sun for 3 days.
What's the
See what happens.
hypothesis?
3
Cloudy
days.
day? Or
What's the hypothesis? We already talked about the hypothesis. You said that sunlight causes direct sunlight causes a plant to grow more, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the hypothesis. This you and I are going to be making inroads onto what I've been trying to get at for 4 or 5 years with this group, but you are I can tell you're going to get it already. So I'm not changing the hypothesis. I'm just changing the test. I want to validate. You gave some evidence. It was solid, but we don't know. It could be other things. What if it's other things like time? What if it's other deals? So we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna put this thing and only put it in the sunlight and control all the other variables for 3 days.
But wait, but
See
wait,
how
wait,
much
wait,
it
wait, wait,
grows.
wait.
Hold on.
Let me.
See how much it grows. And then we let it grow for 5 days and we measure the growth, or a week, and we measure the growth. That's our test.
But
Now
the
we go,
hypothesis
all
has
we
to
do,
be
hold
different
on.
then.
All we're going to do now is change the time. Now we're going to go for 8 days and 10 days. How much did it grow sorry, we're going to go same. I mean, I fucked up this whole test.
Yeah, because listen, you're
No,
you-
no, no. I was trying
you're
to give you a
substituting
test.
sunlight into your.
he's
What I
trying to
wanted to do is give you your same
quantify.
hypothesis, but use it change the time and time alone
Yeah,
only.
but you're trying to quantify. You
No,
can't
no,
do
no, no,
that.
no, no, no.
No,
I'm
no,
gonna
George,
no,
show.
no.
time
Don't tell me
If
what
out.
I'm
it
Hold
trying to
on,
do.
grows in a
George.
second
Don't
or in
tell
a
me what I'm
minute,
trying to
Please,
do.
it doesn't matter.
George.
As long as it grows.
Okay, great. Thanks, George. Now wait a minute, Zanik. I think the hypothesis can't be the same because you're now turning what was the independent variable, sunlight, into a constant variable, into a control variable. because you're
Correct.
no longer manipulating the sunlight
Yeah,
to
exactly.
cause your effect. So you have to rephrase the hypothesis to include time if you're going to say that time is causing whatever you're going to say, right? So the hypothesis has to reflect what you're proving. And we already proved that the sunlight caused the plants to grow faster or whatever. But now you're saying that we can just put the sunlight on, make the sunlight a control variable, and then manipulate the time, right? Like
Yes.
it
Yeah.
needs it needs a new hypothesis.
So no, it's the same hypothesis. I do my thoughts right here. Same hypothesis. I'll
Cannot be
let it
the
go.
same,
I'll let it
Zanick.
go for. I'll let it go for 1 day, and then I'll let it go for 5 days and measure the growth. Now I go into the shade. I measure 5 days and or 1 day and 5 days and measure the growth, and I see that the growth has changed only by the change of the growth based on the time change. Because the only thing I changed in those two experiments, 1 day
Well,
and
no, no.
5 days, what the what the plant did in the sun and what it did in the shade. That would be an independent variable that I've changed. So I changed the independent variable for the time, and then I did a test where I changed the independent variable for the sunlight.
Wait a minute. Time out. You can only have one independent variable in an experiment.
Those are two tests. Those are two experiments I just did. But this, when I just do one experiment, I go 5 minutes, or I do 1 day and I do 5 days, and I know that.
Wait. Hold on. You're confusing me because now you're doing two experiments at one time. Just do
Well, yeah,
one
I want to get to the
experiment.
point.
Just do one experiment.
That is okay. One experiment. Take the plant. Let it go for 5 days, and keep the sunlight, everything the same, and let it go for 10 days. Let's say. So we have 5 days, 10 days. What is the growth measurement?
Well, all you did was extend the same experiment with time. You
Yeah,
use time as a controlled variable, and then you use two experiments, one with time being a larger control and one with time being a smaller control.
not
So
smart control. They're not. We're changing the actual time. We're not controlling it. We're controlling everything else. Sunlight's controlled. Water's controlled. Uh, soil controlled. The type of seeds. Everything's controlled. The only thing that's not controlled is the time. We're going to do a test and measure this plant growth after 5 days and after 10 days. That's the length of time that thing would grow. That's our experiment. We
so
get a value.
I still feel
One
like
inch.
the hypothesis needs to be changed.
No, that's the whole idea about the hypothesis. That's why the experiment is different than the hypothesis. We're providing support for your hypothesis in case something else happened. Like when you did your test, the first experiment, which was I put one plant in the and we let it go for 5 days, control variable 5 days, and I let it go for 5 days in the sunlight and 5 days in the shade. I got two different measurements. Well, you could say, well, it's due to something. Maybe it's due to something else that's happening here. So let's narrow it down. So we do another test. We do the one test in the sunlight, 1 day and 5 days in the same sunlight. How much that thing grew?
Well,
That'd be
see,
one
there you go.
experiment.
How that would be one of the points I would stop you, where now what you're trying to prove is how much something changed. It's like a
Yeah, dependent
quantitative
variable.
thing. You're not speaking in terms of cause and effect. You're speaking in terms of quantitative measurement, which is not a scientific inquiry.
Yeah, how much it moved, or let's say a better test of this is more graphic because we're talking about the amount of growth. Is how long it takes for a sprouting seed. The sprouting seed is the best
You
one.
got there
We're
eventually,
trying,
Bushel.
we're trying to, George. We're trying to see how long a broccoli seeds how long it takes in sunlight with water versus shade with no water.
Okay,
And you
well,
have
so now we're just switching from plant growth to germination speed.
well, yeah, but it's easy. But they're both valid. I'm just maybe it's better for you to easier for you to grasp, intellectually. But what we're doing here, I gave you a test. Same, we're going to support the same exact um, hypothesis. We're not changing hypothesis. We're just going to say we are allowed 5 days or 10 days. Here's the growth rate. In that test, we had a change of an independent variable, which is time, and we got data. We got it grew 1 inch over that time, or two. Yeah, say it grew 1 inch over the 5 days. Now we take that a third experiment, also keeping that time change the same, but the independent variable we're changing this time is going to be the shade. But we also have the time, which was already measured. So the independent variable of 1 to 5 days and then 10 days. That independent variable is still changing, even though now we're in the shade and we get only grew a half an inch. So it's giving more support for that original hypothesis that the sunlight dictates the growth is a main factor in determining the growth rate.
Well, right. So really, all that's happening is that you're taking the initial experiment of measuring the plant growth, right? We're trying to see what is the rate of plant growth in shade versus sunlight, and then you're repeating that experiment over and over again, but you're altering the control variable of time, and then comparing the results of the different of those different experiments. It's not all one big experiment, because you finished one and said yes, sunlight proves the plant growth is faster in sunlight,
Mm-hmm.
but then when after that point you go back to the beginning, you start your hypothesis over again. You can't just keep going with the same experiment after you proved it. You have to go back and take what you proved and add it to your hypothesis, and to expand on it. So like you're never really changing what the experiment is, you're just doing it again, but changing one control variable. Like you could do the same thing with the dirt. You could just say like, okay, well, sunlight causes plant growth at this rate. So let's try it again, but use a different soil, or use a different water, or use something else. But all you're doing is saying, okay, well, let's do it for longer. Let's do it for a shorter time. It's still the sun. The independent variable is still the sunlight, and the control variable is still time. Like just doing the experiment again doesn't change the independent variable, or add an independent variable. You can only have one.
Well, let me ask you this. In all those experiments, if I allow more time to transpire, is there more growth?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So we had, if I do it for 5 days or 10 days, that could be the independent variable that I changed. I only allow
No,
10
it's
days.
not the cause.
Hey, stop. No, it's not the cause. I
It's not
allow,
the cause. It was growing a year
it's a
ago.
cause,
It's
the
still
cause of the
growing
change.
now. The
It's
time
not
is
the
not the
cause
George.
of
cause.
growth.
It's still growing.
Sure, I can't do this with George. Sorry. It is the cause of the change because we're allowing more time. If it has more time, it gives you a change in that dependent variable, which is the plant growth, then it is a valid independent variable that was allowing for the longer growth, which is the cause. But it's not the cause of why plants grow. It's just for our experiment. We have determined that if I let it go for 5 days, I get 1 inch. If I go for 10 days, I get 2 inches. So
Right, but
the
it's all relative
time,
to
time was the independent variable. I allowed more time to transpire, and I got more growth. It's all it is. There's nothing. Don't read more into it. It's not saying that all plants need is sunlight or time and they'll grow. No, sunlight, soil, water, etc. We all know that. In this experiment, one experiment out of the 10 experiments we might do for this whole hypothesis, that is one. Hey, I did this experiment. I let it grow for 5 days. I let it grow for 10 days. It grew 2 inches. There it is. That's it. That's all we have. It's just evidence. It is an independent variable that we changed by allowing 5 days or 10 days. Simple as that.
it's a control variable.
I did it. I did it in the sun, for example. Now I can now do it in the shade and do the same 5 or 10 days, and I get a different number. Well, that experiment, both of them included time as an independent variable.
Right, but when you include time as an independent variable from the very beginning, you're going to include that time in your hypothesis. You'll say, if I put the plant in the sunlight for 5 days, then it will grow X amount.
But that wasn't your hypothesis, though. Remember, you started with an hypothesis that hey, sun
Right, right,
intensity
right.
changes.
Right.
Yeah,
So going back, right, at first it says, does sunlight cause plants to grow more? I don't know. Let's find out. We did. We found out that sunlight will increase the plant growth rate. So now that we know that, we go back and we start a new hypothesis, which I didn't say. So sorry for that. So if I were to start a new hypothesis and say, because I know sunlight causes plants to grow faster, Now I'm going to figure out the rate and the time or whatever. Like, and say if the plant is in direct sunlight for X amount of time with X soil and X water, then I will have X amount of plant growth. So I'm adding time, the amount of time I'm planning to use as a control variable in my experiment. I'm adding that into the hypothesis because I have to explain what I'm saying is going to happen with this time. So yeah, you're just using time as a control variable. And
Well, no, I'm not. Remember, the control variables are always kept constant. I'm clearly not keeping them constant.
it
I'm
has to
changing
be
them.
constant. It is constant
No, I
because
say 5 days, then I say 10 days.
right,
For
5 days
example,
is a
how about tree
constant.
rings? Tree rings. How about tree rings?
I
So
don't like
tree
I
rings
don't like tree rings.
are tree rings caused by, hold on, are tree rings caused by the passage of time?
I don't like this. No.
No, they are. You know they are. That's how you
No, they're
determine how
not.
old a
No,
tree is.
no, 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 they're not.
Yes, they are. So the tree
No.
rings are the variable that depends on an independent variable of time. That's a real easy one right there. Rings
It's a
tell you how
correlative
old the tree
thing.
is.
It's not a
You
no.
need time to go by for those rings to create. The dependent variable is the tree rings formation, and the cause of those is time. It's very simple.
No. No, 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 no.
Yeah, you can't say nah. You got to tell me why you say no. Go ahead. Right now, on the spot, why nah?
Why no? Because time doesn't cause things.
Tree rings?
Tree no, it doesn't. The tree is growing, the soil and the
Because
sunlight
it's
and the
time.
air. What
That is the
causes
best
that
one. I'm
tree
glad
to
we had this
grow?
conversation. That's the best one ever. Yes, tree rings are specifically designed or evidence of a tree's growth rate and time age. You can tell how old a tree is by its ring, what happened to it along its path of first time. So time is the independent variable. Clearly,
No,
it
it
is the
can't
independent variable.
be.
That's why you use them. That's why you say, hey, what does this ring mean? This ring only means how old the tree is. Time had passed
Well,
to
wait a
form that
minute.
ring.
Hold on a minute. We're going crazy here.
No. You're finally getting it, I think.
No, I'm
Finally.
not fine.
Thank
No,
God.
no.
Yes, you
No,
are. Yes, you are.
all you did was kind of switch the whole experiment we were talking about, like with the plants, and went
Because in
instead
your
of plant
mind,
growth, you just switched out plant growth with tree rings.
because I wanted you to understand that time can be the cause of certain types of aspects of plant growth. For example, how much a tree grows is dependent on time. It also is dependent on sunlight, but it also is dependent on time. Can't have one without the other. They're both valid independent variables.
And how can you prove that? Can you stop time and show that trees don't
No,
grow
you don't
anymore?
need to. You don't need
You
to time
have
travel.
to.
You don't need to stop time. All you need is let time pass at different rates or lengths, and then you will get different dependent variable changes. Because the whole validity of whether the independent variable is valid or not is by the fact that it does make a change in the dependent variable, whether it be
Oh,
tree
okay.
rings or
So
plant growth.
the duration of
It's
time,
time.
the duration of time that's being noted is a control variable. You could say the tree, we're going to plant this tree, and then we're going to see in 10 years how many rings there are on the tree. 10 years is your controlled variable. The 10 years is not going to make the tree grow. The tree is going to grow because of the soil and the sun and the
No,
water and all the
that's
other
not
things
with
that we can
hypothesis.
prove about
In that
plants.
hypothesis, I would say that I think that these things that we cut this tree down, we see these weird rings. My hypothesis, I think the tree rings denote how old the tree is. So we take this 20-year experiment of this freaking redwood, and we let it grow, and we chop it down, and we mark every time. How do we do this? How do we test it? We can cut a section in it to see where the rings are and how many rings there are. And lo and behold, every one of these rings accounts for roughly 1 year. So we proved to ourselves, supported the evidence for the hypothesis that tree rings actually correspond to the age of the tree, time based.
Exactly. They correspond to the age of the tree. They
Yes, that's
don't
the cause.
prove the age of the tree.
But the independent variable. So we let a year go by, we get an extra tree ring. That's independent variable, dependent variable relationship. You're just fighting it for the sake of fighting. You're not really opening your mind up
No, I'm not.
and
I'm not
letting it
just
in.
fighting to fight. No.
Why do you think the universities all consider independent variables time? And it's not always, only in some cases when you're using it as an independent variable. They don't say time is always independent. It's always usually it's a control variable. You're right, but sometimes it can be a independent variable. And all the fucking colleges in the world agree with me. You are saying nah, and I'm supposed to believe you.
All the colleges. What?
All the colleges, all the knowledgeable people in science. In fact, in most all, in fact, I have it backward. I'm wrong here. In typical studies, time is almost always the independent variable. It's independent because it can, for example, predict or explain changes in the values of the dependent variable that are being studied. Only in studies where time is the dependent variable, like time warp, or some other independent variable, would time be itself a dependent variable. For example, looking at relativity or studying the psychological perception of time and so forth. That's different. But most studies use time as the independent variable.
Oh, they do.
Most studies.
Yeah, most studies are experiments.
Name one.
I would say studies is fine to say, but I don't know, not experiment.
Yeah.
Because you need to vary and manipulate your independent variable, and you can only have one. So when you say time causes stuff, you're neglecting
Tree rings.
what we just said about the sunlight.
Why
Why
do a
can't I
test?
just say that? Hold on. Why can't I just say that sunlight causes the rings on the tree? Because we already know that sunlight causes
Yeah,
plant growth. Now
that's
we're gonna just
that's a great
disregard.
test. You know what you'll find out? That that's not true. That's a great. I'm so glad you brought that up. So now we do the test. Let's give this one
Oh
tree super
God.
sunlight. Hold on. We have one tree in super sunlight and another tree no sunlight. After 20 years, we cut the trees down, and guess what? The rings are all the same number for the number of years. The sunlight didn't change that. So you're
No
right.
way. No way. That
Yes.
wouldn't happen.
Yes. Yes,
Well,
it does
then that
happen.
would nullify our first experiment about
No, it
plant growth being
doesn't.
caused by
Because we're talking
sunlight.
about tree rings, not growth, not the height. That's I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm going to use that from this point forward. Thank you for that. Good job. You just made my point.
No, I don't think I
Yes, you
did.
did. Because the sunlight doesn't change the tree rings. A tree is a year older, whether it's fucking in the dark, in a dark forest, or it's in the
I don't
bright
think
sunlight.
so. Dude, you're telling me if you took two baby trees, two little tree sprouts, and you planted one in direct sunlight, and you gave it water and soil and everything it wanted,
20 years
and
later.
then you took the other tree and you stuck it under your bed, and you didn't water it, and you didn't give it no soil, and you just suffocated it. You're gonna tell me that the one under your bed is gonna have the same amount of growth as the one outside planted in the sun?
No, not not at all. But the tree ring spacing, that's difference between the two, there will be narrower. They'll still have the same yearly function because it's based on seasons, not on sunlight or water or how big it gets. This is my point exactly. The tree rings are going to be a yearly measurement, and
Wait. You mean a seasonal measurement?
yearly seasons. There's 4 seasons in the year.
Not
So
necessarily.
yes, there are. So these seasons, whether they happen or not, doesn't matter because of a drought or humidity or high temperatures, whatever, cold. But they always form a tree ring roughly every year. So these two trees, one kept in the dark, one in bright sunlight,
Roughly.
will be totally. Hold on. They'll be totally different sizes. And I cut them down. I'm going to say, okay, did sunlight affect the tree rings? How many tree rings there are? No, they still have the same number of trees. Both trees, same number, different spacing, different size, same number. So my hypothesis is correct. You and I are arguing about this, like scientists would argue. And you and I would do this test, and I'd be right and you'd be wrong.
So
That's how it's been.
hold on. I think I got it now.
Thank you. I knew you would because
Right.
you're smart.
So, thanks. So when you say that seasons are what essentially
What? How did you do
cause
that so
these
fast?
tree rings to
You asked me to do
appear.
it. You
I
have
love the way
never
your
done
brain
that
works, man. You're just
to
like
me in the 4 years that we've
the
been together. How do you know
consummate
how to do that?
contrarian, but I like it though.
Babe!
But maybe the seasons
my
are causing the
God!
tree rings.
Now
Right, but wait,
you're a
wait,
little.
not just seasons, because no, not
You're. I
seasons.
got skills.
Temperature
You
change,
have
weather
never done that with
patterns,
me.
because it
Right.
sounds like the tree that
Ah!
has rings, it has to. What's causing those rings to appear would be the environment, right? Because the seasons change, it gets freezing cold, it gets super hot, and as that happens, the tree changes itself as those seasons go, and that results in the rings.
Yeah, but the rings will still be the problem with that is that you still have the same number of rings regardless of what that hardship of the tree went through. In fact, we could look at the trees and see. In fact, they do tree ring data to figure out what the temperatures were. Did you know that? That's part of the proxy data they use for climate change. These fuckers, that when they get all the wrong
But
information,
wait,
say how
wait,
we're
but that's besides the point. The
no, the
point
number of
is
rings.
that the claim is that time is causing these rings to appear when that's not the
Num-
case. It's the tree itself reacting to the environment that's causing the rings.
Correct,
And just
but
because it
that's
happens
not
in
my
an
hypothesis.
interval, because it happens on an interval that uh correlates to seasonal weather patterns and changes,
Time.
therefore that's the
No,
independent
I could be
variable.
the
If you
first.
grow a tree in a place where there's no seasons, will there be rings?
I'm the first botanist of the world. I get, you know what? I'm going to get a Nobel Prize for this. I think tree rings tell me how old a tree is. Oh, you're full of shit. We're going to do an experiment now. You and I are fighting about it, right? So we put one tree in the dark, and 20 years later, we're both old and gray. And we go, oh, look, see, I cut this tree down. Look, this still has it says 20 rings. This one has 20 rings, but this one's like a fucking dwarf tree. It's only 6 feet tall. This one's 20 feet tall. There, I've just validated and supported evidence for my claim that
Mm,
tree rings are based on time.
mm-mm, no.
Yes,
So
you know I'm right. God
it's
dang
not
it, you know
no.
I'm right.
What you're just your latest example there of trying to figure out how old a tree is not a scientific inquiry. You're not
Yes, I'm going to
you're
let
not
time.
establishing cause and effect. You're just trying to get a
uh,
quantitative
No, I'm going to say
number.
at 5 years I cut a tree. The two identical trees. They are the same height, they same conditions. I cut one down at 5 years. I see the number of tree rings. I cut it down at 10 years. I see the number of tree rings. That is time. Time was my only variable, and I'm now correlating between the number of years that have gone by and how many tree rings there are. And my hypothesis was basically that. Hey, as it gets older, you'll get one tree ring per every year. And I validated it. And I did it by an experiment that varied time, 5 years or 10 years. Simple. It's an independent variable because all I changed was the time.
What
I didn't do anything
caused the
else.
rings though? What caused the
That's not my
rings?
that's not my fucking hypothesis. Don't you get it? I don't care what causes it. All I care about my hypothesis is that I think there's a correlation between the number of rings and the age of the tree. How many? Here's my test. I let the test go by. I change only one variable, that's time, and then I cut them down and I see what I got. All I'm saying is that time was the independent variable, which is true, and the rings were correlated to the number of years that have gone by. Boom. Supports my hypothesis. I don't give a shit about anything else other than the tree rings and time. You get it. I hope you can tell all your friends the story. This is why I don't do more than one show a day. It's too stressful.
The rings on the tree are being caused by something.
Make your hypothesis.
And
Go ahead.
huh?
You're going to make a whole different hypothesis, and I'm totally with you. Let's make
Oh, okay. Well,
why do
I get.
why do those
Look. I'm on board with the correlative part of it. Where like, oh, the tree rings correlate with the years because the tree goes through seasons and does something on a yearly basis to where we can see how many years this tree has gone through this process.
right?
That is still not elucidating a cause and effect relationship.
Yeah, because no, remember hypothesis is that's why I'm such a stickler for this. My hypothesis had nothing to do with what causes like the physiological. What is it called for trees? For humans, it's physiological. Is it physiological for a plant? You know what I mean, though. What is causing this? Like, why is it making this weird pattern? What's causing that? Well, you're going to go into that, and you're going to make some hypothesis. Well, I think it's due to a formation of bark or water or nutrients, minerals that are absorbed in the soil that kind of deposit themselves in a ring form around the xylem and the phloem and all those technical terms of trees. You're going to say that, and I'm going to agree with you, by the way. And how it'll have nothing to do with time. It has to do with something else now, because that wasn't my original hypothesis. You're making a whole new hypothesis. Why these tree rings are formed? I think they're due to the minerals in the soil that get up and it moves them around these phloem and xylems and makes a circle. I mean, whatever. I don't know what,
Well,
your
right,
hypothesis.
it is. You're right. It is a new hypothesis because it starts off with the correlation of that. Oh, hey, we noticed that these tree rings kind of line up to how many years this tree, because I planted this tree and now I cut it down and I see the rings. I cut it down 10 years ago, whatever. You correlate the amount of time with the rings. Well, now you say, okay, well, that's interesting. Why? How does that happen? That's when you start doing science. That's when you
Well,
start
yeah. So that
changing your
answer here,
independent variable.
I did a quick lookup. It said it's caused by cell division in the cambium, a layer of tissue beneath the tree's bark. The cambium produces new cells that create the tree's xylem. Remember, I just mentioned that earlier, which carries the water through the tree. The pattern of new cell growth creates the tree's annual rings, right? So my
Yeah.
hypothesis had nothing to do with what causes it. It had to do with the fact I said I think that tree rings happen annually. That was my hypothesis. And I proved it by letting time go by 5 years, letting time go by 10 years, cut the trees down, see how many rings there were.
Well, wait, what did it say was the cause? It said cell division in a
Cell
certain.
division in the cambium, yes.
Okay, so what if you were to take a tree, two trees, and on one of those trees you somehow find a way to vary and manipulate that cell division, and you can stop the cell division from happening? Will there still be rings in 10 years? 10 rings.
I don't think you can fake a tree out for the season. Some kind of supernatural forces involved with.
Well,
Remember, you know,
I don't know how
how do they
either, but
always
I'm
know?
just
How do
saying
they always know when to
hypothetically.
freaking make the leaves fall? You can have like California where the temperature like 70 degrees all year long. How does these trees know? They all seem to know when to drop their leaves. Isn't that weird? Can you fake a tree out? I guess
Well,
your answer.
I don't think the tree has a stopwatch on it. I think the
Well, how
tree
does it
just is.
happen? I've always been amazed.
It's responding to the temperature and the weather.
No, but sometimes like in LA, like they haven't had rain in an entire year. The temperature has been fucking 70s, 80s for 365 days. Be it all the trees grow, they all drop their leaves. The leaves come back all the same. Every tree, no matter where they lay in LA, they all do the same thing. I've always been amazed at that. How is that possible?
Wait, but isn't it kind of the same as saying like, oh, squirrels hibernate because of time and not because of the weather? Like animals only hibernate in the winter because they have an internal clock that tells them, "Oh, it's time. It's that time of the
Yeah,
year
I mean
for me
that's
to do it."
you
Or
know
do they just do it
I do
according to
not
the
have
temperature?
I do not have your answer. So if you and I were both scientists going, wow, there's some crazy things that happen in our world. Why do trees lose their leaves in autumn? Uh, why do bears hibernate? What causes that? You know what? I have no answers, no idea what the
But we
hypothesis
can
would be.
correlate.
So
We
go
can
ahead,
say,
knock
well, we
yourself
know
out.
this time of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can throw in time correlations in there, but you're not getting closer to the cause of the effect.
yeah. All I can tell you is that these rings form on the trees, and if it's rainy, they'll be wider apart because the cells are going to be forming around the xylem, which carries the water. And if it's a dry season, the rings will be closer together. It'll be a forest fire. It'll stunt growth. There could be other things that are characteristics of these tree rings, but lo and behold, they're all a year apart. My only hypothesis was that I think that the tree rings are caused by the time that passes. Every year you'll have another ring, and lo and behold, that will be proven by the evidence or shown to have strength in the evidence that we cut a tree down after 20 years. We see, regardless of what environment it's in, you see 20 rings. No matter where it is, no matter how much it grew, it's always 20. One next to it, we starve it, we poison it, still has 20 rings. The rings look different.
Well, right. Well, not just starve it or poison it, but like I said, I don't know how. I mean, don't. I'm not going to claim I know how to stop cell division, but the claim is that cell division is the cause of the tree rings. So if you had the ability to stop that cell division from happening,
Yeah.
then there wouldn't be any trees, and the tree would be there just as long as the other one, and you'd cut them both down, and one would have rings and one
Yeah.
won't.
How do you get the bark, this layer that I talked to, the sebum, whatever it's called, the cambium, whatever, below the bark? In the spring, it starts to grow a layer of tissue under the bark, and those cells begin to divide.
Why does it do it in the spring? Why not do it in the winter?
I don't know. I mean, same reason that the leaves fall off in the autumn, in the fall. Why
Right,
do
because
leaves fall off a tree?
it's the temperature. The tree's reacting to its
No, like I said,
environment. It's not doing it
there you
on
go.
a time
You know
clock.
what? There's another hypothesis. I think the leaves fall because of temperature. It starts getting cold. The leaves go, it's too cold. I'm going to fall. No, it's not. It's a time-based thing. Another great time-based independent variable about why the leaves fall. There's other
No
physiological
way,
things that happen with
dude.
these leaves. But you know what I mean? So you're getting it. No one
No,
else
I'm
I've
not
talked to.
getting it. You're just
Yes,
you
you
keep on
totally
turning
get it. You
time into
totally get it. No,
no,
you
I'm
totally
not.
get it, dude. You
No.
want to change the cell growth? Figure out a way. I have no knowledge. I'm not a botanist. Neither are you. But you know, you're onto something, and if you can change that. In fact, I want to find out why. Can we fake out a tree and make it think it's autumn? I don't know. What causes trees to react to the seasons? That'd be what causes trees to react to seasons? Hormonal changes. But that doesn't give me the answer. Dense canopy. Warmer temperatures. Yeah, maybe some type of temperature. Cooler, shorter days. Trees stop growing, and I don't know. Hormonal changes. They're like women. Go through like yearly menopause. I don't know. Oh, decreased daylight. That could be it. See, there'd be my hypothesis. I do it. Decreased daylight. Chlorophyll breaks down, exposing other pigments that give leaves their fall colors, and then they die off and fall off.
Well, right. So this whole thing about tree rings, dude, like it seems to be based on the seasons. It's all about the season that these certain natural biological processes start occurring. And the season is not just a number, like a time, like 12 o'clock. A season comes with environmental changes, temperature, wind, humidity, snow, So it's not the time in terms of seasons. 4 seasons make a year. So they say that the rings happen once a year. It's happening once every 4 seasons. And just because we call 4 seasons a year doesn't mean that we can turn around and say, well, therefore, since year is time, then therefore time causes it. No, it's the different changes in the environment between the seasons that cause the biological processes to happen, which results in the rings, which is why it looks like it's once every year, because it's once every 4 seasons. It's one cycle.
Great.
So turning around and saying that it's the time causing it is
No.
neglecting.
You're on. I gave you an A+ up to that point. Now I'm going to start degrading your grade. No, you were absolutely right. That's awesome, and we're talking through it. Seasons, definitely change of temperatures. All this that causes physiological changes in the tree that are making it happen annually. It's a cycle, and that causes these rings to form. But that's not a hypothesis. My hypothesis was specifically different. I specifically said that I think there's a correlation between tree rings and the age of the tree. So I'm going to do a test. I'm going to let it go for 5 years and then 10 years and see how many rings there are. And lo and behold, there's evidence to support the correlation between time, which is the independent variable, and these rings. Doesn't
No,
mean I
no,
don't
no,
have to
no, no,
worry
no,
about
no. Pause
causes
right
them.
there. You're not going to do an experiment to test a correlation.
Yes, you are. I should maybe using
No,
sloppy terms.
a
Yes.
correlation is not a
No.
yes or no.
Okay. Cause.
It's not
I'm saying
empirical.
Okay, I'm going to be more specific then, because you're being ridiculous now. I'm going to say the tree rings are caused by the elapsing of time. And in 1 year, I will get one ring per year based on time, and that's causing those rings. And I'm going to do a test. What happens in 5 years? I get 5 rings. 10 years, I get 10 rings. Okay, so I've just given evidence that time causes these rings. Now you're going to say, well, I think the physiological cause of these rings is these cell division that happens every spring when the cambium starts growing underneath the bark, and you're going to do some tests to show that, and you're going to be right too. We're both going to be right. They're two different two different hypotheses and two different sets of tests. You can
The
both be right.
one where you said you were gonna, when you're saying you want to correlate the time to the
You have to
rings,
correlate. You're
that's
getting
not
stuck
an
with the word
experiment.
correlation.
Affirming a correlation is not the purpose
I'm
of
not
the
affirming
scientific method.
I'm not affirming a correlation, although I kind of am. That's not the point. You're providing evidence for your hypothesis. My hypothesis is that I think that time elapsing will cause these rings to appear.
But then you have to vary manipulate something.
Time, 5 years,
You're
10
gonna,
years.
well, 5 years. That's a static number.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
control variable.
No, not a control variable because I'm not
Yes,
controlling it.
that's a
In my
control
experiment,
variable.
I specifically am not controlling. In my experiment, I'm specifically talking about doing 5 year and 10 year. It's not control because I changed it. In my test,
Well, that's because you
measure
did
5 years,
two. You
measure
did
10
That's
years.
two
What do you
hypotheses.
get?
That's
You're
two
not getting.
hypotheses.
You had it before. Now you're not. Now you're pissing me off.
No, that's two hypotheses you're doing
No,
there.
it's not. One hypothesis. One hypothesis. I think time elapsing will cause tree rings. Here's my test. Here's my experiment. I'm going to take a tree, fucking hack it down. Two identical trees, hack one down at 5 years, one down at 10 years. What do I see? Wow, one has 5 rings, one has 10 rings. There, it supports my hypothesis. Nothing more. I'm not claiming anything
Ah,
else.
so
You want to do something more. You want to find out what causes the formation of these rings. Well, now you're onto something different. Different hypothesis. And you just laid out some of the things you test for, to see what they look like. And is it caused by sunlight?
well, it
Is it
doesn't
caused
make
by
sense
drought?
though. How can you
Oh,
say that your experiment, you're gonna say that time causes the rings, and then I'm gonna make an experiment that says that temperature or biological processes causes the rings?
because the hypothesis asked that story, explain that whole theory, idea, whatever you want to call it. It's saying that after you want to know what causes the formation of it, I want to know if time elapses, do they form based on time? Is there a relationship between time and the number of rings? That's my hypothesis. I think time elapsing causes this formation, the number of rings that'll form in a tree based on time.
Okay, then. So then take a tree, cut it down, and then come back in 10 years and tell me that the rings have added 10 more rings to the tree, the
No,
dead tree. Is
you
that going
can't
to
do
work?
that. No, you just
Why
killed it
not? Why
because
wouldn't
you
that
killed it
work?
because
Because
you killed it. So you
so
know
the
my answer to
so
that
the
would be
tree growth, so the tree has to be alive and growing for the rings to even appear. So how could time be the conduit here? If you cut the
because I've
tree
allowed
down, there's no rings, but
I
the
don't have
tree's
to
still
kill it.
there 10 years later.
I
You
don't have
cut
to
the
kill
tree
it. I
down.
don't have to kill it. I can cut a section in the tree. I'll cut a little triangle into the tree all the way to the core, all the way to the center, and measure the rings. Didn't kill it, and 10 years later, it'll have another. I do another section of the tree and do the same thing. So I'm saying that my hypothesis says that there's a direct relationship between the number of rings and the age of the tree. Time in 5 years will give me 5 more rings. Prove it. Show evidence for it. Okay, I'll do that. I'll let 5 years go by, and then I'll measure the number of rings. And then another 5 years go by. Never. I'll keep on doing that. I'll keep on changing the independent variable 5-year increments and see if it is giving me 5 more rings. And it measures it does. It has nothing to do with your hypothesis, which is different. What's causing this? What minerals are accumulating in these areas of the tree that make it visibly look like a ring? And why are they spaced out? And why are there, the whole thing? You can make a much more detailed story, and you can prove that by, well, this year we're going to fucking poison it, or we're going to give it nitrogen or higher nitrogen in the soil, or we're going to not give it sunlight, or we're going to give it more water or less water. Those independent variables are changing because you want to find out what's causing it. And you're going to correlate with all these different experiments, which had independent variables of sunlight, of soil compositions, of water, of temperature, and you're going to see that, wow, we cut the tree down. We keep track of when we changed. And look at this. This year when we did this, look at this ring. This year when we did that, look at that ring. You're going to have a much more complete hypothesis of what causes these rings physically, physiologically. Not my hypothesis, which was a simple hypothesis. which was, hey, is it related to years? And I found out there's a lot of evidence that supports yes, it does. Response to years. I don't give a fuck what it's caused by. All I care about is it happens. You see? You get it? We're both right. No need to fight about it. Now I got a headache. Yelling too much.
I don't get it because I don't understand what you're proving by just claiming time and using time as like an all-encompassing thing to account for every variable, and then act like you're proving something, but you didn't account for anything during that
Two
time.
things. Two things. Never said I proved anything. Never said it is all encompassing. Those two things are
Well,
very
when you use
critical. You're
time,
making two critical errors that are completely and utterly wrong with no merit and no logic and no
all right,
like
so
you're not even paying attention to what I just said. Did you
so it's
just get
basic.
me?
Yeah, I kind of missed. Like I heard you earlier, and it's like to me, all I'm really getting is like you're reverse engineering something, and then you're substituting things in to come to like to like build the case for the outcome.
Let me see if you're onto this. Let me summarize it in like two sentences. This hypothesis is that the rings are due to how much time elapses. So I vary the time, which is an independent variable. After 5 years, I get 5 rings. After 10 years, I get 10 rings. Boom. There's my evidence for the fact that time is a factor in how many rings will appear. The Bushnell then talks about what actually causes the physiological uh, changes in the tree to make rings, which has to do with the amount of sedentary effects and the size of the phloems and xylems based on how much nutrients, how much sunlight, how fast the tree grows. Completely different hypothesis. And he has multiple experiments which will change sunlight, which will change the nutrients in the soil, temperature, how much water the tree's getting. Each one of those experiments will be different and they will result in what the shape and how the composition of those tree rings. Whole nother hypothesis, whole nother set of experiments, completely different than my hypothesis, which is strictly about time correlation to rings. I can't summarize any better than that.
Yeah, so you're just using the word time because it's an inevitable outcome.
What the
So you
fuck?
just say time,
Just say time.
right?
Yeah, time. Time. No.
Well, don't be a
I'm saying
dick, guy.
time.
I'm asking you a question.
No. Time has to elapse, and
Right.
it's directly related to how many rings that the tree will have. Because at first when I thought about it, I forgot about how if it
And
was
you can
once every
prove that.
year, or if it was
Like that.
if it depends on how healthy the tree is. Maybe some trees will have more rings. No, it's really I started remembering back in my own biology days that rings were specifically determined by time, regardless of how healthy the tree is, and that is a hypothesis that it is
That's not true.
related to you cannot have more rings without the change of the seasons.
Regardless of how healthy the tree is.
Regardless of how healthy the tree is, you'll have the
Okay,
same
so
number of
cut it
rings.
down. Okay, so cut the tree down and let's see the rings
Well, then it
appear.
stops. Then it stops growing. That's being
Right,
kind of
because
selfish.
it's not healthy anymore.
Well, yeah, it's
It's
dead.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dead.
So how can
So
you say that the health of the
when
tree
it
is
died,
irrelevant when the
I
tree is
can tell you
completely
all the history
dead?
of that tree. When it died, I can tell you all the history of that tree, what it went through for its entire life, how much water it
Yeah,
had, how much
but
sunlight
then
it
the
had.
rings stop growing. There's no more ring growth.
Yeah,
So the health
but I
of
can
the
tell
tree, dude, no. You said the health of the tree doesn't matter, which is completely false.
along its path as it grows, as it creates rings. I said remember the
It
hypothesis is
has to
how
be
many rings
alive.
per year? How
It
many
has
rings
to
per
be
year?
alive.
Yes. So rings per year, one, always, regardless of how healthy the tree
So
is.
even if you chop a tree down, the rings still grow.
As long as it's growing, the rings will be the same.
So then how
Yes,
can time be the independent variable if the tree's health is necessary?
because that's a control variable. You think about it. You're falling into the same trap you fell in before. So yes, one of the control variable, tree has to be alive. Thank you. And with that, I say goodbye. I can't talk anymore. My throat's getting sore from yelling.
All right, man. Well, nice chatting with
I'm
you.
not going. I'll stay around, but I'm not going to talk about this anymore. We already
Okay.
we made a lot of progress today. You and me, both.
Yeah, it was good. Pure rigor. I see that you.
Yeah, I'm new.
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going all right. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to talk in here. I saw everybody muted, but I kind of got a little lost on that. What point he was trying to make, what he was trying to prove.
Yeah, like what do you mean?
Just I don't know. Like I've been listening since the whole astrology, like towards the end of astronomy, astrology, whatever you want to call it. Saying it's like science and pseudoscience and yada yada. And
Uh-huh.
I just been listening to the way he fabricates his argument, and that's all. I was trying to just make sense of it, where he was going with this one. And all I could like come up with is like, well, I don't know. It just sounds like you take the outcome and then you try and reverse engineer it to make sense of it.
Hmm.
But there's so many variables that aren't accounted for. But then you claim because I built this hypothesis, it supports this idea. But it's like, well, never mind.
I see what you mean.
Like the whole thing with rings and with the tree, and it's like, oh, time. No matter what, it's like claiming no matter what, if time passes, then rings will grow.
Yeah, and you can say that about pretty
Not
much anything. Like,
right, but that's not like that's ignoring every single variable, right? You take every variable that creates them rings or causes them to form in the first place, which we don't really fully understand, right? We comprehend it and shit, and then you just take all of that information, you put it in a little jar, and then you write time on it, which isn't fair. Like
well,
if
no,
you're
no,
trying
no.
to argue a debate,
I see what you're saying, but I think it's more like you take all those independent variables that, well, not necessarily independent variables, but like all those factors that go into tree growth that we know, and
right?
then you put them all in a little jar and you call it controlled variable, and then you throw time in the independent variable slot. So you basically just flip your independent variable with your control, and yeah, that's kind of what he did.
Yeah, and you can't control time,
And if it was time alone that caused the tree rings
which
to
is proven it
occur,
doesn't. Like
if it was time alone that caused the tree rings to develop, then you should be able to cut a tree down and show the rings continue to grow with time, because time is the only cause. You can't have more than one cause in your experiment.
right, but I mean, the science already proves that
Oh
it isn't
boy.
just
What are the
time.
control variables? We already talked about this. The control, I'm listening still. Control variable, plant
Hey,
still
he's
has to be
back.
growing.
Welcome back, Zanick.
Tree has to be growing. One control variable, so it can't. That's not. We're not talking about sole isolated cause. We're talking about the hypothesis and the support of the hypothesis with evidence. The hypothesis was that the rings depend on time. We change the time in the experiment, 5 year increments. We see it gives you one ring per year, confirming and giving evidence to support our hypothesis. Doesn't say that's the cause of tree ring. Just says that it's a cause uh, of time passing. Time passing is the cause of tree rings.
Yeah, but that's not factual.
It is factual.
Well, stop the time then.
We don't need it. We just meter the time. We allow 5 years and then 10 years. We see the change in the independent variable directly relate to the effect. The effect is the creation of these tree rings. We don't care what causes them. We don't care what the physiological aspect of the tree rings are. Again, I've said this 100 times already today. All we care about is that there is a relationship between the time, which is the independent variable, we change it for 5 years, and then the dependent variable, which is the creation of tree rings. They are created, and they're created every year. There is our correlation. You might not know that. You might think it's due to how big the tree is or how much water it got, but no. Lo and behold, the tree rings are only related to time and nothing else.
Not the
Well,
life of the tree, though. The
that's
tree
just
That's
not
being
control
alive.
true.
variable.
That's just not
Life of the
true.
tree is a
Like
control variable. It is true. Get over it.
you just claim the rings are determined by time.
Correct.
That's not truth.
It is true. Show me they're not created by time. Show me when time is not allowed to progress that those tree rings appear for some reason. They don't. They only appear when a year is allowed to go by. That's a
Or if you
time
cut the
variable.
tree down.
Control variable must be living. Do you not? That's the fifth time I've said it already.
All right, so everything that accounts for the way it lives and the way its health carries on is like, oh,
Yeah,
that's all encompassing with time.
is the cell division also a control variable?
Like everything's a control variable. All the shit you don't know about trees is part of the control variable. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? It doesn't
All
make
right,
any
don't
sense at all.
swear. Don't swear.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
You're
I'm
good.
just really confused by the logic. That's all. Like I don't get it.
It's ditching the mechanism, dude. The mechanism of the change, which is the seasons, the cell division that's causing the tree rings, is being neglected and put into a jar called control variable, and then the actual mechanism is being replaced with time.
Time. Yes, that's what I keep coming back to. I'm like, well, why would you fabricate that type of argument? Because it makes no sense and it doesn't really. To me, it just doesn't hold any water. Because like I get it, it's clever, right? It's clever. Well, then you could just make that time argument for so many things in the world and be like, well, if your control variable is just it's the health of a something, well, yeah, everything's going to change over time if it remains healthy, or you don't account for every single variable. Just say, oh, it's all control because that's just the way things grow, and all you
Hmm.
need is sprinkle time in there, and you'll get the same outcome. It's like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think that time has to be a control variable. It can't be an independent variable ever. And when you do multiple experiments and you change how much time you do in the experiment, all that is you're just changing your control variable, and that doesn't cause anything because the cause of the effect is still cell division. It's You're never going to take away the fact that the tree is undergoing a biological process which causes the rings in the first place. Just so happens it lines up with how many years have gone by. Maybe those are Gregorian years, maybe those are some other type of
Right.
year. Maybe what calendar do the trees go by? Are they Jewish trees? Do they have 13 months? You know what I mean? So like you can't backwards engineer time based off of trees because it's the other way around. The tree just does something every 4 seasons naturally, and just because the time, just because the amount of years correlates to that, doesn't have any bearing on the cause of it.
Right, right. The outcome is not dictated by time. Time is just a lapse during that phase,
Right, the time elapses and the
but it's not.
processes, the
It's
mechanisms happen, the cell division is happening, and therefore you have tree rings.
but I get where he's going too. Like I get it's a clever argument, right? To make a case for time. It is. I'll give him that.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I've
But in
heard it
practice,
before.
it's like, what the? It's just not logical.
What are the other? I
Well,
know
for
there's
me,
other. I've heard of other tricky little things like this, where time is an independent variable. I can't remember though. I've heard time being used as an independent variable multiple times. Like I think paleontology does that a lot. Archaeology.
yeah, it's all like all that carbon dating bullshit. It's like
Yeah,
so inaccurate.
yeah. It's just exactly like carbon dating. The time it takes for the carbon to
Yeah. And then they
whatever.
find out they go drill in Antarctica. They were claiming for like millions of years the ground's been frozen. Then they find vegetation. It's like, well, just throw all that shit out. That science is wrong. But then again, it was like, well, this was considered factual, like textbook factual, actual science when it was just all pseudoscience from the get go. And then they prove themselves wrong by core drilling.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh well, what's the new formula? No, we're just gonna stick with carbon dating. We're just gonna stick with it. Like, okay,
Dude, where are you from, man?
Massachusetts.
Oh, cool. Me too.
Are you what part? Are you north of Boston,
I'm
south of Boston?
No, I was from Central Mass, right in the middle, the exact
Oh,
middle.
so where would that be? Like around Agawam or like more westward?
Worcester.
Worcester. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, all right.
pretty
So you
close to
cut off the whole west. Yeah, that's what we all do.
Worcester. I don't live there
West don't
anymore
even
though.
count.
I live in North Carolina now, but I did grow up there.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, I'm not too far from you. I'd say like maybe 20, 30 minutes out, right? To call it time.
Awesome. Always glad to see some new mass holes in here.
Yeah, New Bedford area,
New
South
Bed.
Coast, Bristol.
Okay, New Bedford.
Yeah.
How's the weather up there right now? Super snowy.
Dude, fucking sucks. It's so bad. It's freezing. I've been throwing on my just for my drive to work. It says starting up my car, worrying about all that, and I take when you get out of work, it's like you gotta wait for you. I don't do all that. So what I've been doing is wearing my ski gear and just hopping out in the car like that. In about 10 minutes in, I'll pull over or so and take off the ski pants. It
No.
is cold, like cold, cold.
What temperature?
Seriously, ski
Uh,
gear?
Hey, I'm telling you, you can knock it all you want, but I'll go outside. I'll truck anywhere with ski gear on, and I won't be hurting. My hands, maybe, my toes, maybe, but not my body. In the 20s, but
20s.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the wind chill is.
I don't
That's where the
remember
ski
it
gear
getting
comes.
that cold. Like when I lived there, I felt like the coldest like I probably ever saw it get was probably like negative 15, maybe negative 10. And I thought that was cold, man. But then I went to freaking Michigan, dude, and Michigan was like negative 35 with like a negative 50 wind chill. It was insanely colder than Mass.
Yeah, I was in I went to boot camp in Great Lakes when I was a kid. That fucking that was not fun. But we weren't dressed. I wasn't dressed how I would back home, but it did feel a lot colder, you know. Like back home, I had like all my clothes. I could put on whatever I want, however many layers. Out in there, it's all you got is your military stuff.
Yeah, I don't miss it, man. I mean, I like the snow. We actually just did get a lot of snow a couple days ago here on the coast in North Carolina. And like
Yeah.
we only get snow like once every like 5 6 years, so it's pretty rare that we get snow here. But this time we actually got about 6 7 inches, so that was, I mean, usually when
Oh
it does
wow.
snow here it only snows like maybe an inch or two and then it's gone the next day. But this time we
Yeah.
actually got a pretty nice amount. And
Do you want to build a
yeah,
snowman?
I didn't build a snowman. I took snowballs and threw them on the wall at my girlfriend's house and made a smiley face on the wall. I did that. I didn't make a snowman though.
That's funny.
Yeah, see, I got snow pants. I don't think I've worn them for more than 10 years now. It's only
Where are you
when
from?
it's super bitterly cold, bitterly windy, and I have to be outside for longer than half an hour. That's the only time I've ever worn them.
Where?
I'm in Canada.
Canada. Phew.
Yeah, it gets cold up there.
Like last week, I had to go into work. Well, I wore my normal pants because if I wear my winter line pants and go indoors, I just start sweating like crazy.
Yeah, once you go indoors, it changes everything. That's what I love about ski pants. I can take my backpack, throw it in the back, and I can wear, something really comfortable for the drive. Put my ski pants over it, get to work, and then see how I want to dress. How cold is it inside? Throw in some thermals or no thermals.
Yeah, like I said, I wear them only on the most bitterly cold days, and only if I have to stay outdoors. So other than that, I never wear them. My normal lined pants, they're cold weather pants. Those are more than enough for me. I never even wear long johns. I used to wear long johns as a child into my
You don't
teens.
wear them anymore?
I never wear them anymore.
Oh, you got that tolerance. You got that cold tolerance. I lost that when I hit maybe, 40. Growing up as a kid, I didn't care. All year round, I'd wear a t-shirt to work, stand outside for the bus. Didn't even matter.
Well, I remember the one time I was in high school, and we were going to have basketball practice after school, and so some of the kids were outdoors waiting for the school bus in the cold. So I went outside to walk on the snow. It helps clean the bottom of your shoes, right? So when you go to practice, you got nice clean shoes. Gives you better grip. So I'm talking to the one girl out there, and her teeth are chattering. She's wearing a jacket, like a long jacket to her past her knees, and her teeth are chattering. I'm out there in shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm fine.
Uh, Yeah, it was like that when I was young, but not anymore. I
Well,
think I spent too many trips down south traveling for work, where it
Yeah,
changes you.
I hear that. I can't handle no cold anymore, man. I was in North Carolina for like
It's
about
warm out there.
10
Holy
years before I went out to Michigan. And man, I used to be able to handle some cold just from being in Mass. But after living so many years here in Carolina, damn, dude, I can't handle any cold anymore.
I mean, that's what a lot of it might be. Because I was down in Louisiana for the summer, and I came back home for the winter. I mean, I just did it in reverse, like an idiot. It's so dumb.
Snowbird, reverse snowbird.
Yeah, and I I get cold now. It's not the same when I was younger. But I think there's something to that. I think there is, like that natural tolerance. It could be mental. Who knows?
Yeah, because I mean, you got those guys that freaking swim in ice lakes and stuff, and it's nothing to them. I guess after you do it enough times, you just kind of like your body just gets used to it.
Yeah, it stops remembering what normal is. It just accepts the torture like it's the new normal.
Yeah, like when it snowed last couple days, I walked outside barefoot into it just to see how long I could stand it. And the first time I did it, I lasted like 30 seconds. But then the next time I did it, it was like a minute and then like a minute 20 seconds. Like as I did it and kept doing it, I could stay longer. But I don't want to torture myself.
Yeah, I hear you. That's probably the worst bit about skiing too. Like every time you go skiing on the mountain, you go down, you sweat, you warm up, your body like gets all, you're utilizing all your energy and stuff, creating all that
Yeah,
heat.
dude.
Then you go up on
Well,
the lift and you're freezing your fucking ass off.
oh yeah. So like I was barefoot, right? I went outside in the snow and barefoot,
Yeah,
and I wanted to do a scientific experiment. So I used time as my independent variable, and my feet got colder the longer I was standing there. And I thought, man, time is freezing cold. Time just makes my feet so cold. And then I
get
go
them.
inside and yeah.
Oh, poor Zanick. See, that's what my second day on this server. He said something about 9 o'clock. I guess you guys do shows. Who was it? One of the mods. So are these just like debate channels? Like how does this work?
well, we've got live shows that happen in the morning with Nathan, and then we kind of tail off and go into these other channels here for after that show and stuff like that. But technically, we can use them for almost any topic. Mostly, we stick to either what was talked about on the show, or our own little nuances that we want to talk about on the flat Earth.
Yeah, that's what got me in the whole measure to a flat plane. That's what got me to join the server, so I could hear more of the arguments.
Yeah, I kind of joined Nathan's channel because he was doing more in depth on more topics of the flat Earth than other channels were.
Yeah, a lot of the mainstream ones, they just seem to be just, I don't know, just bullshit. Can't tell if they actually flat Earth or a globe, you know.
Or they talk about all the same things over and over again.
Visit, it's like, are you trying to embarrass globe Earth while you defend it? And then I think the same about some of the flat earthers too, because some of it is just nonsense, complete nonsense. But then I came across like Nathan, and yesterday I listened to Quantum Eraser, but all his videos are old on YouTube.
Yeah, mostly it goes to the live. If you check his live category, that's where you'll get the most recent stuff he's done.
Oh, all right. Appreciate that. Yeah, I kind of prefer how they tackle the topic.
Yeah, dude. Quantum is ace. Quantum Eraser. You need to go watch his older videos, the oldest ones, like about the scientific method and stuff. He has a lot of great videos.
Yeah, been going through a couple playlists,
Oh yeah.
but man, it's just so aggressive. Some of the
Yeah, he's
it's like,
aggressive.
dude, chill out, man.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't. It's like you go off the fucking handle, just attacking people. It's like, all right, okay, like let me just skip this part. But I get it when you've been talking about the same shit for so long, because he even
yeah.
says it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, there's all the new shit. All right.
Are you familiar with the Black Swan?
What's the Black Swan? So no, the dev mentioned that. One of the mods mentioned Black
Here,
Swan. I don't know what
look
the
in
fuck
look
that.
in the chat. I'll post it in just a sec. All right, there it is. Boom. Whoops, that's not the right one.
yeah, well,
Oh, I've
that's
seen this.
that was Black
I've
Swan.
seen this one.
Where's the right one? This one. Yeah. So the argument is basically that the horizon isn't a physical location like it's declared to be by the globe side. Like like on a globe, the horizon, the maximum distance to the horizon from 1 foot is only 1.22 miles. But
Yeah, that's bullshit. All that
yeah,
math is bullshit. It's like you can just grab a fucking camera and just
yeah,
see that. Zoom in. It's like, well, this is no brainer. And they say refraction. It's like, okay, what the fuck, dude?
yeah. That's good.
Refraction.
That's
Come
the whole
on.
point. He chose this photo because it was refracted, so that Globers would say refraction. Because then it's like, okay, well, is the horizon refracted?
Yeah,
To get
yeah.
the
That refraction's like a catch-all. It's like, well, what the fuck? And then you go on a website and it's supposed to account for refraction. It tells you how far you can see. And it's like, well, then you gotta account for atmospheric, all this bullshit. It's like, dude, come the fuck on, man. It's
yeah,
like you're just
Yeah,
throwing a bunch of shit in to make your argument. It's like the whole reverse engineering thing.
yeah, but the
It's like,
problem
no,
the problem with their refraction argument is like if you go to Bislin's advanced Earth curve calculator, you can adjust the amount of refraction, right? But
yeah,
all he does is adjust the size of the diameter of the Earth. That's all he's doing in that changing that number.
But
And I also noticed in those calculators that when you can add the refraction, it has the refraction index on like a scale, and you can
Yeah,
put it on the maximum. You can set it to maximum refraction, and it doesn't work with the 3959 mile radius. Like
yeah.
yep,
even with their max calculation of refraction, it still fails.
because
There's one with um something to do with atmospheric, like how far you can see on that type of day, like another variable or whatever. And I went to that, and I'm like, this is just fucking. It just doesn't doesn't add up with the shit I've seen in real life. So it's like I don't know. I don't think any of these calculators are accurate. Because my buddy, like, his whole thing is like, oh fuck it, we didn't go to the moon, right? I'm like, yeah, all right, dude, whatever. I don't care. I don't think we did either. But he's like really into it, and he got a camera, fucking mega zoom, looks up in the stars, all this shit. So I grab his shit, and I'm like, all right, boop, 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 you go off like out into the ocean, because we have like we're right near the water, we can see across the bay and shit. And then I go into the calculator and I plug everything in, and it's like it just doesn't match up. It's like, well, what the fuck? I shouldn't be able to see a lot of this, but I can see it. I can see the whole beach side. I see the fucking swing set over there. I shouldn't be able to see that. He's like, oh, that's getting refracted. Doesn't fucking look like it. But I guess whatever. But I don't know enough about the science and like the exact formulas, and I don't understand all that math to be able to do it without a calculator. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's bullshit. I don't care.
Well,
Type thing.
well, the way I look at it is like this, because Bislin has what's known as standard refraction that comes out to like 0.18 or whatever on his scale. But in order to match some of the observations I've taken, you need to both push that scale like 400, 500% higher than standard refraction. And you're telling me that happens like 400, 500% higher refraction happens on multiple days of the year under multiple different conditions? That's insane.
Well, that's the part where I just get locked up on. It's like, okay, what's determining the atmosphere and the amount of refraction I'm gonna get, and how the fuck do you equate that? Because I can go out on like a beautiful day where the sky looks clear as hell and see the same shit. It, what the calculators are telling me I shouldn't be able to see.
Yeah,
It's like, all
exactly.
right, well, what the fuck? Where does that leave me? Leaves me with like, yeah, fuck that shit.
And most of the globers will say, well, if you're seeing something you shouldn't be seeing, that's refraction. But when I tell them that the reason you can't see the bottom of the buildings is because of diffraction, they have no clue what that is. They're completely clueless.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that far. I, I ain't gotten that far into it. I kind of just checked out. I'm like, well, this is wrong because I can fucking see it, and you're telling me I shouldn't be able to see it, but I'm actually seeing it. So this calculator doesn't work. I just haven't found a calculator that matches up with what I can see in real life, like my real life results. Plug them in. It's like, well, it's different. It's telling me different shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much typical. None of the calculators actually match reality.
Yeah, and
Dude,
I
you can't trust your lying eyes, man.
well, that's the thing, right? For me, it's like, all right, well, I don't understand the math enough to like do all the calculations myself or the science behind it. Like, I just don't get it to do it myself. But if they're claiming this is what it is, there should be a functioning calculator, you know, something somewhere that matches, so it's actually accurate. I would expect that these channels to be a lot more popular.
What the what channel? Like Nathan's
Nathan,
channel?
well, yeah, because I found Quant. I heard QE, QE, QE. That's what I kept hearing in like his videos. You know, referencing someone. I'm like, QE, who the fuck is QE? Right? And
Mm.
I fucking type in QE. Yeah, I try to find it. Eventually, I found Quantum Eraser. I'm like, oh, that's who the fuck they're talking about. But it's like they got no subscribers, and they're very informed on the topics.
Yeah, so the reason for that is algorithmic
Suppression.
bias. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Suppression. Do you know how long it took Mark Sargent to get 100,000 subscribers? He was
I don't
stuck.
even know who
He
Mark
was stuck at
Sargent
like
is.
96,000, 97,000 for years.
Well, he was kind of an exception to it because it seemed to me like he was kind of propped up as a flat earther. Like he had an interview with like freaking CBS.
Yeah,
He had a
yeah, but he
big
was
name
he was
thing.
visible everywhere. He should have gotten at least 100,000 subscribers like 5, 10 years ago. Didn't happen because he was being suppressed.
Mm.
I think does he still have more subscribers than Nathan?
Yeah, he's still over 100,000.
See, that's crazy to me. Like I don't feel like he did much of anything. I mean, like I don't I don't get why he's so revered. I always thought he
What's his
was just
name?
a shill.
Mark what?
Mark
Mark
Sargent.
Sargent, yeah. I always thought he was a shill, dude. Just because of the fact that he just got the limelight, so much of it so quickly without really having it. Like he was a flat Earth believer all those years, all those little like all the arguments I really hear him make prior to like this year were all like Earth awakening, flat Earth believer type arguments, not Earth is measured flat, not FED arguments. And I felt like just his sheer popularity with the lack of substance is kind of a red flag. Like I feel like he just got propped up there.
Mm.
Like what remember that one guy where it was like whenever it's like, oh, flat earther learns that it's a globe, they usually they did it to Jaren this time, right? They propped up Jaren as like the flat earther guy and then destroyed him in front of everyone because they knew that they could because he was ill equipped. And that I feel like the same thing happened with Mark Sargent. Like he was just an ill equipped flat earth believer who just got cherry picked out of the bunch
Mm.
and made to look like a clown so that he could so that they could paint flat earth in this other light. And he didn't seem to notice that either. Like he
Be
never
not
had it
notice or did not care.
that yeah, he didn't care and he didn't notice. Like it almost seemed like he had this kind of oblivious like feeling towards it all. Just like he didn't seem like the typical flat earther who's like, you know, we're kind of angry
Yeah.
about
Oh
this whole
God, you
thing.
are.
Like it's like I'm kind of I mean, I'm not really that mad anymore. I mean, when I first learned about flat Earth, I was livid. I was angry because I had been bamboozled my whole life. I was pissed. And I don't get that from him. I feel like he's just like la 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 la. He's just lackadaisical, kind of happy go lucky that the Earth is flat. I believe it.
Is Mark Sargent? Is he the dude with the hat?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's bullshit. I don't watch his
Yeah,
shit.
I don't know. I always got bullshit vibes from him, man. But I don't know, man.
The way he talks, the way he
Some of the
talks,
people here love him, man. Nathan talks good about him. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't trust him by his mannerisms,
no, I don't trust his mannerisms.
like the way he acts, the way he like does things. It's like, I get a weird vibe. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just saying. To me, from what I know in life, it seems like bullshit.
Yeah, same
Dealing
here.
with people.
I can't. I agree. Like, I can't really like pin down exactly. Like, I can't say for a certain fact that he's a shill, but like, I do just get so. I just get shill vibes, man. I don't know. I can't deny how I feel about it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of his things. There's too many topics that he speaks on where it's like, well, you're definitely not informed.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing just
But
I
he is
feel like
popular.
here in 2025, like whenever I encounter a glober and a glober wants to come at me or whatever, my number one point that I just hang on to is just latitude, man. Like latitude, and then if I really need to, I'll go into celestial navigation because it all requires a flat Earth from the beginning, and
Well,
yeah,
yeah, everything you build on this planet requires a flat Earth.
yeah. I
Everything.
mean, and
Like
not
I
not
do
just building,
construction
not just the building side, like that too, right? Like the large scale construction projects that don't account for curvature, like
ever.
that's one thing. But like just the sheer friggin' latitude system, the grid system that everyone used, the globe uses it. Everyone uses this latitude longitude system, and it's a square grid that's based off of elevation angles to Polaris. So like to even have the latitude system at all, you need a flat plane to measure
Yeah.
your angle to Polaris to
All
get your latitude.
every single one of our building points, every pillar, everything built off of 90. It's that flat plane.
Yeah. And like
That's the argument
there's
that
really
lured
no
me in.
need. Like there's really no need to go into the weeds anymore. Like a couple years ago, we were all stuck talking about Coriolis and gravity and all these other stupid globe subjects, globe claims. But now it's like we don't need to go into globe claims anymore. We just say, hey, look, elevation angle to Polaris, game over. No need to go into all that other crap. I mean, you can if you really want to learn that crap, but I mean, I don't see why anyone would at this point. Back in the day, we kind of had to because we didn't really have the elevation angle arguments. But now that we do, it's freaking point blank game over right at the start. So, and then, yeah, like Globers that don't accept that and they try to make apologetics for how we get our latitude system. Those are the guys that they're just they're too they're too religiously invested in their belief. It's like they can't let it go. And at that point is usually when I usually don't really talk anymore because it's like I'm not gonna try to strip you away from your religion, man. Like, I mean, you obviously need your belief system. So,
Yeah, I get that.
and I think that's kind of the source of all of the anger on their part on the Glober's side, like why they're so why they're up our ass, right? First of all, why flat earthers live rent free in their heads, where it's like even though they deny flat earth and they cling to the globe, and even after you show them all the proof, it's like they have that comfort in their belief. And when you threaten that comfort, you're kind of threatening their, you know, their whole perception. So they feel attacked. And that's why they usually lash out with ad homs and start talking shit first and start, they can't keep their cool like a flat earther can because we just know.
Yeah, but
And
that's a sign of not wanting to like not giving a shit about the other side's argument. Like when you start
yeah,
lashing out, it's like you're not genuinely curious or intrigued by the topic. You're just angry somebody has opposing position.
yeah.
It's like what the fuck is that, dude?
You're angry that somebody has a view that opposes your worldview, and that very existence of an alternate worldview
Yeah.
is a threat. So then they go on whatever Facebook and they start making posts, and they post like I've noticed that like big space pages, like pages that are all about like astrology and planets and shit like that, like practically every post I see from something space related either
Mhm.
in the post itself or somewhere in the comments, someone's got to be like, "Oh, what do you think about this, flat earthers?" Like they're just
Mhm.
they need our attention. They've like, why don't y'all just go enjoy your space, enjoy your balls and space and stuff, and then leave us alone? Well, how come every time you now see a globe from space or you see some stars in the galaxy, now you automatically think about flat earthers? Like, bro, like we live rent free in your brain right now. Like, why why can't you just enjoy your fake shit and
Yeah.
not think about us?
What I don't like is the categorizing. 'Cause I got one brother that's like globe, right? He's just he don't know the fucking science. You could sit there with him for like a year and talk to him about all the shit, and he's just not going to apply any effort to actually learn it. He's just every time he's going to appeal to authority, right? I got another brother that will just do whatever the fuck he watches. I don't care what conspiracy is. He's hitting me up and like, "Oh, bro, what do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Sean, fuck off." Like fucking do some research for once in your life. And I listen to both them go at it. It's like both you guys have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Like, what the fuck is this? But they're both, they're so similar in the way they handle it. But what the big difference is, my older brother. It could be because he's older. I don't know, but he's got like he categorizes my brother now. Like anybody that's like believes in flat Earth and stuff, it's like, oh, you're just a fucking conspiracy nut, and he just puts him in that little category. And it's like, well, dude, he's your fucking brother. You know him better than that. You know he's not a fucking conspiracy nut. He
Oh,
just
dude, you
he
know
likes
how
to just talking about shit.
I find it so funny that like you can talk to somebody and like just any random person, and you could bring up like any conspiracy, anything at all. You can start questioning 9/11 or JFK or whatever, just pick up anything that's not mainstream news bullshit. That's
Yeah, but don't
anything
talk about flat
contrary.
Earth, brother. Don't
Yeah,
talk about.
anything contrary to the mainstream, and it could have nothing to do with flat Earth. It could have absolutely nothing to do with flat Earth, and
Yeah,
they will accuse you of being a
yeah,
flat earther. Like,
yeah.
oh, are you one of those flat earthers? It's like flat Earth is the poster child of conspiracies.
I told my old boss about an experience I had when I was in the military, and that was one of the first things out of his mouth. He was like, "Are you a flat earther?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? What is me being in the Navy and me telling you a story have to do with flat Earth?" They're like, "Well, the globe or whatever. What the fuck are you on about?" I was like, "Why you?" Like, I was just so caught off guard. He's like, "No, it's just like conspiracies, yada yada yada." I'm like, "Well,
Damn.
it's like if I don't trust the government word for word, then I guess this is the category I get put into." But it's whatever. It don't bother.
No, I actually like it because it's like, oh, so like, oh, you're asking, that flat Earth is a big thing, and so when somebody asks me if I'm a flat earther, I'm kind of excited to be like, yeah, dude. Like, well, what the fuck are you? Like,
Well, it makes it easier too for talking about shit.
yeah, it makes it easy
Like,
to bring like because you don't really want to just come out of nowhere and start talking about flat Earth to somebody.
yeah.
But if they bring it up, it's excellent. I love it when they bring it up.
Hmm. But I would say the majority of people are very much so. It doesn't matter what the narrative is. Doesn't matter what the story is. It just matters who told them, who gave them that information.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter like the validity of it or anything. It's just what source did they get it from? What news channel did it come from? What outlet did they get to first read it from?
Hmm.
I see it like that for like pretty much everything. Politics, big time. Politics, you could like read the bill. You can see what the bill actually is, and then you ask people about it. You talk to them about it. And they'll tell you something that the news channel told them. It's like, well, that's not the bill. And then they argue with you. It's like, no, no, I'm just telling you. If you go onto the governmental website, it tells you what it is. And it's not anything that's a debate yet. Like we don't have to. You don't have to challenge me. You can challenge the website where they wrote it all down. But it definitely is an interesting topic.
Oh yeah, it is. Like that whole thing about like people when they say, "What does it matter?" What difference does it make if Earth is flat or not? Like it doesn't change anything.
Well, yeah,
Like
it does.
it changes everything. Like I actually talked to a guy a couple weeks ago on here. I haven't seen him since. What was that guy's name? Let me see. It was Bandy. Yeah, Bandy was in here. And he was taking that kind of approach of like, you know, it doesn't make a difference, it doesn't change my life at all. But then I highlighted to him like the actual consequences and implications of, this mass belief in the globe. And my favorite thing to bring up in terms of like how it actually does affect me would be the company Celestis. Um, so there's this company that targets grieving families who just recently had a loss of life, right?
Hmm.
And they basically sell this idea to them that, oh, we can take some of your, we'll just say little Johnny, like little Johnny died, and then Celestis comes around and says, oh well, little Johnny really loved outer space and he always wanted to go there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of his ashes,
Oh,
his
Jesus.
his crematory remains. I think they call them cremains, but and send them in a rocket out to space or to the moon or to deep space. Like you can send it to different places, and it costs a fortune. It's like 8 grand, and then they have packages that go like over 50 grand. Like they charge a lot of money, and of course they have like full financing programs for poor people and stuff. But they
It's a
basically
real thing.
talk. Yeah, it's a real thing, and they talk basically grieving parents into sending some of their child's ashes to space so that they could so that we can bring little Johnny's dream of going to space to reality, and they fall for it. And to me, that is like the bottom of the barrel of
That's preying
disgust.
on. That's
That is
just preying on people
disgusting.
that are grieving to help them cope and
Right.
sucking their money out of them. That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's
It's
so
so friggin'
unethical.
evil. It's absolute freaking pure evil. And like knowing that that kind of thing just happens, that's just a legal company just hanging out, that's just a thing that we put up with as citizens in this country, that we just
Yeah,
allow. And I'm pretty sure it's some tax dollars going into that too, because it's an agency that's I think it's formed between SpaceX and NASA. Like they work together, they do it in Florida, so they're all working together on it.
they probably all have all kinds of grants and shit given to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see that.
So like to say that this subject doesn't affect my life is insanity, because it's like, do I literally not give a shit about anybody outside of my house? Am I such a traitor to my country that I don't care, and I feel like there's no consequence to mass um fraud? Like my neighbors are being defrauded by this stuff.
Yeah. So you're looking at like flat Earth as like the tipping point, right? That's kind of how you see the topic. Like if you can
Yeah.
crack it. Yeah. I thought that was recycling. I thought that's what recycling was gonna do, but it didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, once people realize like nothing they recycle and all the money they spend and going out of their way is doing absolutely nothing. It's like what it's like 20% or whatever it is, and how they just burn your trash,
Yeah.
claiming they're recycling it. I figured people were just gonna lose their shit because you got to pay more. You got to pay for the different barrels, yada yada yada. It's just more of an expense, and people are like, no, make sure you recycle. It's like, wait, what? You still think we're recycling? Okay.
Yeah, like the financial aspects of the whole deception
Yes.
are massive. And like
Hmm.
whenever somebody's like, "Oh, why would they lie? Why would they lie?"
Money.
I
It's
mean,
always money.
you could start with the financial side, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, it's a huge industry space,
Yeah.
and if that's not enough for somebody to lie, then that's just
Yeah.
retarded. Of course,
It's
people
just.
will lie about what they had for breakfast without thinking about it. They don't care. So a
Hmm.
liar will just lie about anything. But
I mean, once you fund power, like if you're going to be funding power to somebody, the majority of people are going to lie to obtain that power.
yeah, when that much money's on the table, you can guarantee that there's going to be some liars trying to get to it.
Well, and even those that aren't liars, you know,
True.
they, they
Just
might
trying to make
just,
a buck.
yeah, look for that more comfortable life.
Yeah, but the money is one thing, but I don't think that money is.
Well, the money brings power and control, and a lot of people strive for that.
But right, and I think they've achieved that. Like they're at the point now where they have the control that they have because of it, right? They've lied to everyone, they've got the control, but they're not satisfied because there's another aspect to why they lie that goes beyond money, it goes beyond power, and it's a spiritual thing. Like they teach this globe stuff in opposition to the Bible.
Hmm.
They're they're teaching children basically from the crib that there's no God. And like I feel like that is their bigger mission. Like that they could give a shit about money. They print money.
Well, you
They don't
can't attack
care.
every religion.
Huh?
You can't attack every religion. Just Christians, Catholics, Muslims, but you can't attack them all.
Well, I think that they don't really care about attacking Muslims or Catholics. I mean, Catholics are the ones that came up with this globe stuff. I mean, the Copernicus was a Catholic priest. I mean, the whole
Yeah, the Roman
Copernican,
Catholic Church.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Roman
they got
Catholics
they
are,
got absorbed.
yeah, they're shot. Catholics are not Christians.
No, they went away from the scripture. They completely went away from it.
Right, and that's why they don't care. That's why not like the only religion that is being attacked by the globe is Christianity.
Pretty much. Well, the main
And
one, the main target, you see,
yeah,
is
because and
Christianity.
that's always been their main target. Like just
Yes,
not just with
they
the globe, but
infiltrated
like
the
everything.
Catholic. Yeah, the Catholic religion. They infiltrated that ages ago, like way back in the day. But yeah, the Christian faith is what
Yeah,
I
that's
see. Like in my time, that's what I see for the target.
yep. And the Catholics target Christians too. The Catholics are
Hmm.
right on the same boat with NASA and them boys. Like
Hmm.
yeah, they hate the truth.
Like the Pope is a heretic. It's like how do you reconcile that when the Pope is a fucking heretic going against the word of God, inviting all these different religions into what he claims to be the house of God. It says specifically in the Bible not to do that. He is a jealous God. Like what the fuck? And he just completely goes against everything. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, you could do this, you could do that. It don't matter. Just as long as you support the church, you'll be fine. It's like, yeah, no, that's not what it says. But okay.
Yeah. So people who say that this subject has no bearing on them or their life, it's absolute freaking ignorance, selfishness. Like,
It's a lot to take on though for most people to take everything that they were forced to learn growing up. I mean, because when you go to school, is you don't have a choice. You know, you're forced to learn what they teach you, and then become an adult, and then be forced to learn something else. Not forced, but to take it upon yourself to learn and study all over again. It's kind of like a big ask.
yeah, yeah. A lot of
That's
people
what
don't. It's so much easier and comfortable to just
have someone tell you
rest.
the answers.
Yeah,
People want to be spoon fed.
and then take insult when somebody challenges what you were spoon fed, as if you actually put any effort into proving what it is you got told.
Yeah,
Like, like just taking offense and like, oh, you think I'm gullible and that somebody lied to me and that I fell for it? How dare you? Kind
yeah.
of.
What's that saying? It's easier to convince.
Yep.
What the fuck is that? How does it
Easier
go?
to convince somebody that easier to fool somebody than
And
convince them they've been fooled. Yeah.
yeah, that's the truth.
So true.
It's an attack on the ego, and then it turns into the fight or flight. You know,
Exactly. Yep.
either they run from the topic or they sit there and defend. Most people are just gonna check out, like fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
They've made that kind of the easiest way out. That's kind of where most Globers dip out. They don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, they don't want the
Like, it's
topic. They
easy.
don't
It's
want.
easier for them to just stereotype all flat earthers as being crazy conspiracy nuts, and then go on with their merry life, than it is for them to stop and be like, well, and really think about
It's
it.
kind of. I kind of get it though. Coming from their side, I kind of get it because when I first started looking into this topic, it was like, dude, these people are full of shit. Just the arguments they were making and the way, like, the popular channels, they're like, this is
Yeah.
just bullshit. You're talking out the side of your mouth. Like, nothing you're saying is factual. Like, you're just making up. Like, the first time I saw that model, I'm like, there is no way you have all the science to support this fucking model. We don't have you all of a sudden have a working model for flat Earth with like your team of like however many guys versus nobody else could get a working model for the globe with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people working towards shit like that. It's like, but your team of 20 cracked the code to figure out what we're on. And like, okay,
Yeah, the model thing is a whole nother shit show that you'll run into around here. Like, everybody, the globe model, the flat Earth model, like the Globers are still really on this, where like they keep asking for a model, or they want, oh, show me your flat Earth map. They've been on that for years, and
well, it makes sense, right? Because they think they have one.
yeah, exactly,
So they're gonna be like, "Well, where's yours? We got one." It's like, no, you don't. Like,
yeah.
it's, don't. You never have. We never have. Like, we got little images of like this little fucking spiral in space and shit, like a little GIF or whatever it is. It's like this shit's not even accurate. It's not even what it would look like. Like the rotation's wrong. Like it's all wrong. But it's like you show that it looks cool, right? It fucking looks cool as shit. It looks believable. But yeah. Yeah, it's a tough topic.
Yeah, it is tough. It's pretty tough, especially when you just got to start from scratch with somebody who's totally new to it. That can be kind of tough.
Yeah, because they're just gonna probe you. They just probe you. Well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And then it's like kind of gets like a little bit overwhelming. And if there's any one topic you're not specialized in, because I've had this conversation. Like I'm not like I'm neither, right? Like I'm at the point where it's like, dude, I don't fucking know. There's a good chance it could be flat. Okay. There's a chance it could be a sphere. I don't fucking know. I don't have the capacity to like figure this shit out for myself, right? All I could go by is what I see, and what I see doesn't match up with, you know, with the globe. Okay, does that mean it's wrong? No. Does it mean it's right? No. Right? That's kind of where I'm at. But when I'm talking to people about it, I'm just having a conversation, right? And if there's like they stop probing me and I don't know something about it, it's like, oh well, yeah, see, you don't know, so it's got to be wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, wait, what? I don't care. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you I believe in either one. I'm just saying, like, don't you find it strange? And it's like, well, yeah, no, you can't answer this question, then I can't
Yeah, they
believe
got
anything
a
you said.
character assassinate you right away. You know, once
Mhm.
once the subject comes up, they got to find a way to discredit you, to
Yeah,
make so that they can walk away and say, yeah, that guy was stupid. You know.
yeah, he didn't know what he was talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, I tried that with my older brother, and that's what he just kept probing and probing, and I'm like, look, dude, you don't get it. I don't believe your side. I don't believe Sean's side. I believe what I can piece together and wrap around in my own mind. Like if I get whatever I can like comprehend, that's what I'm gonna come to terms with. And I'm not convinced of either one. And he's like, well, what about this? It's like, dude, what the fuck, dude? I don't fucking know. I'm not an astrophysicist, motherfucker. Like, get the fuck
Mhm.
out of here. You ask me, you know, you ask me shit about like some dude that studied this shit his whole entire life, and you want me to have all the answers. Like, well, if you can't answer it, then you know, how can you
So
say he's
wait,
wrong?
so like you say you're still kind of like you don't know what it is.
I
Uh,
only know what I can prove, right? That's how I
right.
look. It's like, yeah, can I tell? I don't believe that we have any idea how big this planet is, or whatever you want to call it, the Earth. I
Ah,
don't believe
okay. Yeah, that's what I
there's
was
any
thinking.
way we're gonna be able to be like, oh yeah, we can measure. I mean, even the metric, like if you break out the metric system, supposed to be based on the size of the Earth. It's like no, it was fraudulent. The whole metric system's based on a lie.
Yeah, yeah, I know
You
that.
know? It's like
And
so
subsequently the metric system and the imperial system and temperature, yeah, there's all kinds of big things that rely on the metric system, which was derived from the globe.
right, and the metric system's supposed to be more accurate and this and that. Like, yeah, okay, it's like, but I hit a point where it's like, well, I can't prove it. I'm not fucking spending these millions of dollars to go out and figure this shit out. I'm not gonna go map the Earth to see how fucking big it is.
But you don't have to. See, that's the thing. To say that you know the earth is flat is doesn't mean that you have to make a claim about the entirety of the earth, above it, below it, all that, right? You don't really need to know, like, because that's kind of like the globe side. It's same thing, like the globe say they have a model.
Yeah,
It's
no,
kind of
they
the
don't.
same idea. We don't have a flat earth model, neither do they. But even though they claim to have knowledge of the entirety of earth in like a three-dimensional kind of form, they don't, and neither do we. But to say I don't know the earth is flat because I don't know the entirety of the earth, I can't say that anymore, because I know that we measure it flat and we
Yeah,
utilize it as flat. Like celestial navigation shows that we can use circles of equal elevation that cover over what, 12,000 miles, some crazy amount of distance, with these equal elevation circles. So like, I don't need to know the entirety of the earth to say that it's flat, because it just, we measure it as flat, the ground, and like that's all there is to it. But globers need you to make that claim. Globers
hmm
want you to say, oh, the disk in space, they want an entirety claim. When you say flat earth, it doesn't imply an entirety of the earth. I, that's why you spell flat earth with a lowercase e. If you spell flat earth with a capital E, then you could kind of try to say that it's a claim about like earth in its entirety. But when you use lowercase e, you're just talking about the ground, the earth, the ground.
yeah,
And we measure it and it's flat. So I'm a flat earther. Like, it's pretty simple. You just get caught up in that whole like need need to know everything, need to know like everything that a glober claims to know. They kind of put us in this position where now we have to explain gravity, we have to explain eclipses on the flat earth. Oh my god, how many times have I heard that?
They can't explain them.
Explain sunsets. You know, they always want you to explain something that they think they have an explanation for.
What I noticed with eclipses is they walk it back after, and they do that whole reverse engineering thing where their calculations were off, and then they go back after the fact, and then they change a couple things, and it's like, well, now it matches. It's like, well, if you know the like you have everything figured out, you, and eclipses support your model, then why can't you get it right when you're claiming to know what's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen the way you say it's gonna? Well, what's your excuse for that other than just changing the formulas? Like, oh, we had this wrong. Like, yeah, well, you had a lot wrong. But yeah, I'm kind of like at that point where, yeah, well, I believe what I can prove. Believe what I can see. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna make like an overall claim of what the Earth is because I just don't fucking know.
Yeah, nobody knows. Like I think the like if I could sum up flat earth in like
Hmm.
the quickest way possible, it would just be up is up and down is down, and that's that. There's no going so far down that you're eventually going to be going up, and there's no going so far up that you're going to be going down. Like up is up everywhere, down is down everywhere. And if the ground has waves and trees and mountains or whatever, you know, it's not perfectly flat like some of these guys out here try to say, oh, well, atoms are round, so therefore flat earth can't be true because everything is round somehow. Like,
Right.
I hate
Yeah,
that
I've
shit.
heard that one.
Like, oh, how is earth flat if there's mountains? They love that one. It's like, at the end of the day, up is up, down is down. That's it.
Yeah, and I don't understand how mountains would support a sphere more so than it would support a flat plane.
Yeah, it doesn't even have, I don't think it has any bearing at all on either. Like,
Yeah,
the
when I think
flatness
about it,
of
it's
the
like,
earth doesn't negotiate anything when it comes to the terrain or waves or whatever. You know, it really is a it is more of an entirety claim, I would say. Like to
mm,
say up is up and down is down everywhere, then that would be kind of me saying that, you know, I have an entirety claim, which might not really be the strongest position, but yeah, I mean, I think that no one's ever gone so far down that they came back up.
no, I think the first we've been down is what, that hole in China, not
No,
China, Russia.
Russia, the borehole.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I knew more about that. Like, I wish they were more. They released their findings
Didn't they
when they did it.
say I remember hearing that they used primary secondary waves to try to determine what was below them as they were digging, and that like every time they not maybe not every time, but like a lot of the times that they did their little scan to figure out what they're digging into, if they're gonna hit water or sand or whatever, that it was wrong. That like their little device said, "Oh, you're about to hit water," and then they dig deeper and they never find water. Like they just. And then I think they got down to about 8 miles, and then they had to stop because they couldn't go any deeper or something. Like I think it got too hard. Like the ground, like the earth became too. I'd have to look that up. I don't know, but I remember hearing something about that they just couldn't dig any deeper because their equipment wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, there was some official release or statement or whatever it was, but I've never seen. I wish they would have taken all the data from what they did and released it, you know, and made it public like at that time and shared it with the world type thing.
Yeah,
Because
like
then we could have,
live as it was happening would have been good. Now it's just
yeah,
like they
or
can
like
just
when
lie.
they decided to stop, or like a month before they decided to stop, you know, something like that, where they
They heard the
shared
screams
it.
of people suffering in hell. You
Right,
ever
and
hear
that's
that?
what you get. Right, yeah, I've heard that. It's like that's the rumors you get from it because they're so secretive with the information. But I get it. It's like country versus country. Everybody wants the edge on each other.
Yeah.
They want
But
one
if
up
it, but
on them.
if it but if it somehow proved a globe, we'd probably never hear the end of it. Probably always constantly hear about it. Oh, well, they dug in Russia and found out it was a globe. Like if they actually found out something useful, they would it,
Well, they didn't like what they found. For them to stop, they definitely didn't like what they found. And they stopped for a reason. You know, to go that far down and then just be like, yeah, let's just fucking just all this money we've thrown towards this, we're done, and then not have any hard scientific, you know, something to go with it. Like it's almost as if they gave up.
Hmm.
I don't know what they were really trying to do or what, but yeah, because that's an expensive endeavor,
Yeah,
and then
almost
just
as
to just
expensive as going to space. Might as well take NASA's budget and go dig a big hole, man. It'd be more worthwhile than what they're doing. I'd rather have a
yeah,
super giant borehole in Nebraska than have some space cartoons.
yeah. Then they filled it.
They filled it.
They were quick. Yeah, they filled a huge portion of it or something like that.
Well, that's stupid. All that work and they just filled it.
Mm.
That's sketch.
That's the part where I'm like, well, what the fuck did they find? Like, release some of that, you know? Then that's what, you know, the mind starts working. Like, well, what was it? And I think that's how a lot of the rumors start. Like, oh, they heard voices of hell. Like, pretty sure if you crack the gates to hell, it'd be a lot worse than hearing just voices, you know? You bore a hole into hell. Yeah, pretty sure it's gonna be. I don't think it'd just be something as simple as, oh, let's throw some dirt back on it. But yeah, everybody's going to space now.
Oh yeah, I just went there the other day.
Yeah. I don't believe that one for a bit.
Yeah, nobody goes to space, man. There ain't no space to go to.
Mm-mm. Nope, I stopped believing that one when I tried to argue with somebody about it. I'm like, yeah, we did, bro. What the fuck you talking about? And then I tried to defend it, and I was like, oh, fuck off. I just lost over and over every time. And I come up with like a new way. Oh yeah, all right. Well, what about this? It wasn't really a debate. It was more like a discussion with a friend of mine, and I just keep challenging it. You know what he was saying, his claims and stuff, and then I just found myself. The more we discussed it, the more I found myself like, "Hey, did you notice this too?" You know,
Hmm.
it's fucked up too. And we're like, "All right, well, eh, I don't believe that one now." But I used to believe all them pictures were real, all them photos.
Yep. We
That
all
was one
did.
of the big ones that fucked me up. I'm like, dude, you shitting me? This shit's fake. This is like false advertisement.
Yeah, it didn't really dawn on me until I tried to find a real photo of a satellite. I wanted to see a real satellite in space, and all the pictures are fake. Like, there's not one like legitimate picture.
You can see glimmers with a camera, P100 or something like that. I think it's a P100 my buddy has.
One
If you
thousand.
get it just yeah, is it 1,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he sets it up every once in a while because he's big time. Like fucking space ain't real, you know. Like he's completely he doesn't believe in it. But you can see like glimmers. You can't really make it out where it's like you can say objectively that is absolutely a satellite.
Dude,
It's
people
picture.
claim to see it with their naked eye.
No,
That's what they
how the
do.
fuck?
People say that. People are like, "Oh, I was outside last night and I saw a satellite drifting by. Oh, there it goes."
How do you know it wasn't a plane? Like, what the fuck? How
That's
can
what
you
that's what they
differentiate
say,
something
dude.
that's in
It's
out of
because
a
if it's
plane?
not if it's a plane, you can usually, you know, you can kind of tell if it's a plane. But sometimes you look up at night and you see like it looks like something that's like way further away than a plane, but it's got a
Fucking
light and
speckle.
it's
It's a
probably a
speckle.
balloon. It's a balloon.
It could be anything, dude. It's just a little speckle in your eye.
Yeah.
You know, in a
Well,
void, you see a bunch of stars and then like a little speckle off in the distance. Kind of looks like it's moving, but
well,
how can you?
Well, the
if you
problem
had near perfect vision, you should be able to see a light travel across the sky the size of the ISS. But you won't know it's an ISS. You'll just see a light across the sky.
Right, right. You see a light amongst other lights that looks like it's moving, but it's like that thing. It has to be going pretty fucking fast to be like, oh, that's definitely moving. But we do it on the camera, and you can see, you can make something out, and it kind of looks like a satellite, for the most part. It's like, oh yeah, that could be a satellite.
Well, see, the tough part is when you account for how far away they claim satellites are,
Right.
and
Yes.
and and how big they are. A satellite
Yeah.
is, I think the biggest ones are like the size of like a school bus, and the distance they say, I believe, I think it's in the 200s, like 250 or even more. How far away are satellites?
Depends on their
So
elevation. Most satellites are at like 800 kilometers.
yeah, it says between 160 and 2,000 kilometers. So to say that you look up at the night sky and see a school bus that's 160 kilometers away, but then if you look up and see an airplane that's 10 times bigger than a school bus and the airplane's only 7 miles away and you can barely see it, it's a little dot in the sky. How the hell are
Mm.
you seeing a damn school bus that's 30 times further away than an airplane? Even the lights on that thing shouldn't be visible at that distance.
Well, he says his claim is nothing matches up with the size that they say it is versus his level of zoom doesn't match up. Like the picture he gets versus how big they claim it is doesn't match up. Like if he does like all the calculations,
No,
and I'm
that
like,
makes
yeah,
sense.
all right. I'm like, all
I
right,
did a
cool.
similar thing with the ISS where I did the calculations on how big it is because somebody posted some photos of the ISS traveling in front of the moon, which was really good because it gave a reference to how big it could be because the moon never changes its size from where we are. At
Mhm.
least at least we know that. Globers will try to say otherwise, but because you can compare the distance, you can calculate whether or not the size is correct for the distance. And so I saw another photo where they took a picture of an airplane flying in front of the moon,
Mhm.
and I lined up the photos and I cropped out the ISS from one and the plane from the other, and made the moon the same size. So like the moon was kind of my reference,
All right.
and the ISS was like, if I remember, it was way too big. It was way too big because when you compare it with an airplane, the ISS should only be about like a third of the size of an airplane. Where when it was in front of the moon, it had to have been like way bigger.
Yeah, that's his thing. He thinks everything's in low orbit. He doesn't believe anything's out in space. He thinks everything's in low orbit.
Well, what the hell? Where the hell is low orbit? That's still space.
Well, it's our atmosphere. It's before the radiation belt that the Van Allen belt and everything else.
No, that can't be
Basically, still in our atmosphere.
right. But we don't. Is, there? There are no. There's no such thing as orbit at all. like any kind of orbit, no matter how high up they claim. And same with atmosphere. Like there's no atmosphere. It's
Well,
just
I could get the distance right. What they claim low orbit to be. I don't really know. So 1,200 miles,
damn.
2,000 kilometers is like low orbit.
Yeah, I don't know. Orbit kind of. I mean, first of all, it's begging the question, right?
Yeah.
For there to be
Yeah.
orbits, there needs to be a globe to be orbiting.
Well, no, you can orbit it around in a circle.
True, you could orbit around your house.
Yeah.
But isn't it
All right.
also doesn't it also violate the first law of thermodynamics? Like creating energy, like for a satellite to be traveling that fast and maintain its speed for that long and never really slow down or fall. It's just kind of like just
Yeah.
violating
Yeah. Yeah.
thermodynamics
Just think
nonstop.
of the moon's orbit, where the moon has to speed up to get ahead of us, and then start slowing down to get behind us, and then it has to start speeding up again. So it has to keep doing this, and it's done it accurately for thousands of years.
Well, it's whipping through space at a gazillion miles per hour and spinning on its own
Yeah.
axis. Oh, actually, wait. The moon doesn't spin on its own axis. It does it. I don't fucking remember.
Oh yeah, it has the moon has a geosynchronous orbit.
The tidal lock orbit, which hasn't changed in thousands of years,
Tidal lock.
miraculously. And that, that just the odds of that happening in nature have to be like one in a gazillion.
Yeah, you got a better chance telling me that squirrels don't exist.
So I guess there's three orbits: Leo, Meo, and Geo. They
Yeah.
consider low Earth orbit is Leo, right? And then geostationary orbit is Geo. Oh no, there's more than that. Holy shit. They have quite a few they got Meo, Heo, SSO. Fuck all that.
Yeah, you got your high Earth orbits, low Earth orbits, geosynchronous
Medium Earth,
orbits. You got your Lagrange
heliocentric,
orbits, all this stuff.
Lagrange points, yep, transfer orbits and geostationary transfer orbit, heliocentric orbit, yeah, sun synchronous orbit, polar orbit. But I think the distances are mostly I think those I think the Leo, Geo, and Meo, or Leo, Meo, and Geo, are considered the distance. Yeah, because it says low Earth orbit. They call that Leo, which is basically hugging the planet. And the polar. Oh, so polar is between 200 to 1,000 kilometers in altitude. Oh, I didn't know about that one. Yeah, so the medium Earth is considered past the Van Allen belts. Yeah, so much of that I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't believe it. Half that shit. It's like they accurately predict how to put these satellites up there amongst the million other satellites and get it at the proper distance. I mean, I believe they're capable of sending shit to low orbit, but all the other orbits, I don't know. I don't fully grasp how all that works.
Save It for Parts channel. Today we've got